UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, a very good afternoon. This is Talk Drive. I'm Peter Cardwell. Free speech is dead in Portsmouth. It's official. We covered the story a few weeks ago of the fact that an asylum seeker had been charged with rape. The chief executive of Portsmouth Council then told councillors not to talk about it because of community cohesion, trying to put her stamp of authority and say that this should not be discussed. One of the councillors who we're going to talk to in just a second said, that's not right. These things have happened at an asylum hotel. Therefore, he is going to talk about them. He then made a formal complaint about that chief executive and brought it exclusively to Talk that has been dropped. She has no case to answer. So apparently it's fine to now say to councillors, you can't talk about the fact that an asylum seeker at an asylum hotel has been charged with rape in the area because it might inflame community tensions. I don't know about you, but I'd rather just know the truth and then make up my own mind. Unsurprisingly, there's going to be a protest in Portsmouth tonight. We're going to hear about that from George Madgwick, who is a councillor who's been telling the truth, standing up for free speech, in just a second. We'll also talk about the many problems with migration in this country. Epping Police Commissioner telling the government to stop sending migrants to unsuitable hotels to avoid fuelling community tension. We'll talk about the doctors' strike, helping those who want the NHS to fail, says the Prime Minister. Trump is here. He's taking time out to open a Scottish golf course. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about Jeremy Corbyn's new party, what it should be called. What do you think it should be called? Someone says Jezbollah. Someone says Britain last. What are your suggestions? We'll talk about firemen not being able to call firemen firemen. Yes, really, an exemplary fireman who had a absolutely sterling record, a letter of commendation, who was then criticised and disciplined for not calling people out for calling firemen firemen. If they're men and they fight fires, I'm very happy to call them firemen. We'll talk to Sir John Redwood as well. We'll find out about the sport and we'll hear about Jewish comedy gigs at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival cancelled over safety concerns. What are those safety concerns? Well, Jews are taking part, so the Edinburgh Festival apparently doesn't want that to happen. We'll find out all of the detail around that. I want your views on all of these stories. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. You can send me a WhatsApp voice message. You can send me a WhatsApp text message. You can give me a ring, or indeed you can send me a text as well, 87222. And of course, give me a ring, send me a voice note, or indeed send me a WhatsApp text message 0344 499 1000. Loads to discuss between now and Kevin O'Sullivan at 7 o'clock. He's got a big exclusive coming up on migration as well. Loads to discuss. Definitely want to get your voice on the air. 0344 499 1000. Lots to discuss between now and 7. Stay with us here on Talk. Well, let's bring you that Talk exclusive story. This is a council boss accused of trying to hush up a migrant rape charge has escaped any formal investigation whatsoever. Town Hall boss's ruling she had no case to answer. This is Portsmouth City Council's chief executive, Natalie Brahma-Pearl. She was the subject of a formal complaint which alleged that she had tried to withhold details about a rape suspect living in a taxpayer-funded asylum hotel. What happened? The allegation was that Natalie Brahma-Pearl was speaking to councillors and said, don't talk about this, community cohesion could be at risk. She had absolutely no right to do that. An employment committee has quietly ruled that she has no case to answer. This is despite the accusations from a senior councillor, George Madgwick, we're going to talk to him in just a second, that she blocked public discourse over fears of inflaming community tensions. The man was charged, and we'll be very careful about this, we don't want to jeopardise a trial, but he was charged with rape and voyeurism following an alleged attack on the 11th of June. He was living in an asylum hotel at the time, but no statement was issued by the council confirming his immigration status. So we have allegations of political interference. We have an attempt to gag elected officials. The panel has ruled that none of the allegations against Natalie Brahma-Pearl, the chief executive, reached the threshold for a full disciplinary investigation. No action will now be taken. So it's fine to say to these councillors, don't talk about this. The decision was reached unanimously. A Portsmouth City Council spokesman said to Talk, the council does not comment on any matters relating to individual members of staff. This is a matter, yes, of course, it relates to an individual member of staff who happens to be the chief executive. It also matters for free speech in this country. It matters to the people of Portsmouth. It matters to people right across this country who want to have an honest conversation about what is happening in migrant hotels. Not everybody in migrant hotels is a criminal, but some of them are. And if they are, and if they allegedly break the law, and we know that there are charges, so we're going to be careful here, we should know about it. Councillor George Madgwick was an independent councillor. He's now a Reform UK councillor in Portsmouth, and he is on the line now. George, take me through what has happened to you in the last few days.
Absolute chaos, Peter. Absolute chaos. So, yeah, I mean, as I say, you explained the story really well. Everything you said is accurate and true. That the chief executive approached me at midnight on my personal number and encouraged me using language which I can only define as unacceptable to try and to keep me quiet from telling the members of the public about public information. I think that's the key point here. And this isn't the first time she had done this. She had tried to lobby me before to change my opinions on the Council of Sanctuary Pledge. So I had put
the Council of Sanctuary Pledge, that's when council said that we are welcoming asylum seekers. I mean, I would argue, and Natalie Brown-McParrell isn't here to defend herself, but I would argue that's none of her business. That's up to the elected people like you who have a mandate, not people who are appointed to make that decision.
Correct. And, you know, the freedom of political expression is a characteristic that's protected under the Article 10 of the Human Rights Law. And I put that in a very detailed complaint, a legal complaint to the city's monitoring officer and the leader of the council. I asked them, if you remember, Peter, and for the listeners watching, I said when I originally came up with this story, it has to be done independently. This has got to be taken away from
I remember you saying that. And they're marking their own homework with this process that they've gone through.
Absolutely. And the Employment Committee, just to be very clear, and this is public information, the Employment Committee is purely made up of 6 councillors and standing deputies, and those include 3 Liberal Democrats, a couple of Labour, and a Conservative councillor. There is no independent, Portsmouth Independent or Reform councillors on that panel. And obviously, you've got to remember this is a Liberal Democrat administration in Portsmouth that stayed very quiet when these original things come out. So I was informed that there was going to be an employment committee. I wasn't able to attend, which I thought was really strange, just in case the committee wanted to maybe cross-question me or ask me questions about my allegations, confirm anything. They didn't, that I wasn't allowed to attend. I was told to stay away, so I did. And in my absence, they made a decision that our constitution hasn't been updated since 2015, which means it is non-compliant, and it means that the JNC principles, which are principles that govern these type of things, aren't updated in our constitution, and they can't refer them on this case. So what they decided is that there wasn't enough substantial evidence, or they felt, to launch an independent investigation. And I said this a month ago. This is what would happen.
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
Because you cannot allow left-wing Liberal Labour councillors to determine this kind of thing. It has to be taken out of councillor hands and be done independently. And they have stopped that process dead in the water. It's finished. No further action.
So just to be clear, George, we're in a situation where you presented the evidence, all written evidence. Presumably you quoted the messages that had been sent to you and so on your personal mobile. And at that stage as well, this has now been thrown out essentially, no independent investigation, and they didn't even ask you about it. They didn't even bring you in and say, actually, we just have a couple of matters, we just want to ask you a couple of questions. Did they come back to your evidence? Did they send you an email and say, can you just give us a bit more information? Was there any kind of sense of getting more detail from you or talking to you about this formally?
Nothing. And I've been told, you know, I've not been told how the matrix or how they just come to their decision. I've not been told whether my human rights have been considered as part of the decision-making process. As I say, they received my complaint in full. They received the council officers their point in full, and they made a decision based on that. But, you know, they had a several-hour meeting, and during that whole process, they weren't able to cross-question. So they didn't have the ability to ask me questions, or you know, if they had an opinion, they couldn't clarify that opinion. So how can they come to a reasoned decision without actually being able to question the person that's made the complaint? It's fundamentally flawed. And now, unfortunately, these councillors, these parties are now essentially part of this cover-up, because they're now protecting the chief executive officer, who, in my opinion, and it is an opinion, my opinion, has done something wildly inappropriate.
So I'll tell you, you're living this, and it's a big thing for you, and it's obviously taken up so much time and effort and bandwidth and mental space for you over the past number of weeks. I'm going to tell you how I see things, George, and you tell me whether it's right or wrong. And we should say, again, I'm just going to read this again, Portsmouth City Council spokesman said the council does not comment on any matters relating to individual members of staff. But as I said earlier, I think this is more than this. There is a lack of transparency in this. There is a lack of accountability in this. There's someone who isn't elected in Natalie Brahma-Pearl. I'd love to talk to her. I'd love to have her on the programme. I'd love to discuss with her why she felt she could send those messages. I'd also love to speak to other members of that committee and ask them why they decided no further action would be taken. What appears to me to be the case, and tell me if I'm wrong, George, and tell me if I'm being unfair here, is that there is a total lack of transparency both in what happened, then you called it out, you've been attempted to be silenced twice. They want you to sit down and shut up. That's what they want you to do, George.
Yes, absolutely. And just to be, you're on about transparency here and accountability and governance. The administration of the council is run by Councillor Steve Pitt, a Liberal Democrat leader. The chairman of the employment committee is a Liberal Democrat. For the complaints procedure or for the audits procedure, the Governance, Standards and Audits Committee is, guess what, chaired by a Liberal Democrat. They're marking their own homework at every single angle, and they've wrapped their arms around the chief executive to protect her. And I got told, and this is what I said in this interview a month ago, I got told that the Liberal Democrats were going to attempt to brush this under the rug, and here we are, it's been truly brushed under. And it's not right. This shouldn't be political. This shouldn't be about political parties. It should be about what's right and wrong. And I would say exactly the same if the chief executive told another councillor from another party to be quiet. We should be transparent. These people are paid wages by the taxpayer. They are responsible to the taxpayer. And it appears now we, as elected members on behalf of the residents, have absolutely no ability to hold these people to account in a public, transparent forum. And I think, Peter, and I'm sure you agree, that this sends a really bad message.
It's sinister. It is sinister because it is a factual point. It is a factual point, and you've been very good, and I've been trying to keep on the right side of the law here as well in regard to the fact that factually there was a man who lived in an asylum hotel, an asylum seeker who was charged with rape and voyeurism following an alleged attack on the 11th of June. That is a factual piece of information. The courts have that information. That legal process is ongoing. Yet you were told not to talk about that because of community cohesion. We're in a situation where the Royal Beach Hotel, which I know is one of the hotels in Portsmouth that is housing asylum seekers, that I think there's going to be a protest there this evening. Is that correct?
I believe so. I think that a number of the local hotels are having protests. We've had a big local issue as well in Waterlooville, where the MP Suella Braverman's been talking about it because they're looking at housing migrants just up the road from us as well. So there is an issue going on here around at the moment, and it isn't good. But, you know, when you go back to talking about facts over this is what has happened, X, Y, and Z, I mean, it is factual because I think you've seen, Peter, the screenshots. It is factual. The chief executive did contact me at midnight on my personal mobile to encourage me not to talk. Fact, not debatable, not opinion, fact. That is against the Human Rights Act. It's against the Nolan Principles. So why, and this is the question, why do they not want an open and transparent investigation?
What are they afraid of? And the fact is they know they've done something wrong. Should say again, I'm going to read it out again. Portsmouth City Council spokesman says the council does not comment on any matters relating to individual members of staff. I know that there are going to be a number of protests this evening, one at the Royal Beach Hotel in Portsmouth. You're a local councillor. You've joined Reform UK recently. I know that you will want to say to people, and if there is anybody in Portsmouth who's thinking of attending those protests, I am sure the vast majority of people, let's hope everybody, is there completely peacefully. This is an issue where I'm annoyed by it, you're annoyed by it, but what would you say, George, to the people who will be attending those protests or protests anywhere in the country about this in terms of keeping on the right side of the law and the importance of that? What would you say to them?
Absolutely, and I think this is the fundamental point, is the moment that it stops being peaceful, it completely ruins the reason of why people are there. Peaceful protest is a fundamental right that we have in this country, and the second that anybody stops being peaceful during this demonstration, it completely undermines the process. And I'll be frank, anybody that breaks the rules should have the weight of the law thrown at them. You can do this peacefully, you can voice your concerns peacefully, and that's what they should do.
What are you going to do next?
That is a big question. I've got a lot of options. Listen, I've got a lot of options. I can look at doing a judicial review. I have already submitted a complaint to the head of audit and the chair of the governance audits committee about how the decision was reached. But as I say, the chairman of that panel is a Liberal Democrat, so I don't think that that will get very far. I'm also looking at the point of potentially getting our own KC or own independent legal lawyer to look at it objectively and see what they believe. Because at the end of the day, all I was asking for was for somebody to independently look at it to determine whether independently she had broken the rules. That's all I was asking for. And whatever the comeback from that, we would have taken, but that's not happened. So I may look at doing that independently and publish the result. If not, I'll wait till May next year, and when we take control of the council, I'll resolve it then.
George, I just want to read you two messages that have come in before I let you go. Angie says, I live in Portsmouth and the public has a right to protest against alleged rapists. We won't stand for it in Pompey. We are united in keeping our kids safe. This is spreading countrywide. Why don't the government wake up? We want our streets back. We want to be free to walk at night. We don't want our kids being looked at in a sexual way. My daughter is 14. She gets stared at. This has to stop. Chris says, I'm a Portsmouth resident. All the councillors should be sacked who are involved in this. What would you say to Chris and Angie, George?
Well, fundamentally, Angie is completely right. This isn't the first case that's been brought in Portsmouth from that particular hotel. There was another case that was charged, went to court and been convicted, so I can completely say that's fine.
Sure.
And they are absolutely correct. They shouldn't stand for this. And I think the important thing is when there was a protest a couple of weeks ago, and this is the common misconception, there was a lot of women, a lot of elderly people that were there. It wasn't just far-right thugs that it's painted as. That's not an actual reality of the situation. Mm-hmm. And in regards to the other comment, I agree. I don't like saying that councillors should stand down, because I think often we should be careful about doing that, because I often think that people have difference in opinions. But I do think that at the end of the day, the buck stops at the top. And at this stage, bearing in mind the leader of the council, Steve Pitt, has not made any attempt to communicate with me or talk with me or find any kind of reasonable dispute resolution or mediation, Councillor Pitt should probably now look at resigning, because he clearly isn't capable of running this council any further.
George, thank you for that. That is George Madrick there, Councillor George Madrick, who's a Reform UK councillor in Portsmouth. We are going to try to talk to Steve Pitt, the leader of that council. He's happy. I'm happy for him to come on any time between now and 7 o'clock. I'd love to speak to Natalie Bramah-Pearl, but they're hiding behind a statement, and Portsmouth City Council is saying the council does not comment on any matters relating to individual members of staff. I've read that statement out 4 times now, and they have had their right of reply. If they want further right of reply, anybody from the council, an elected councillor like Steve Pitt or Natalie Bramah-Pearl, are very welcome to come on this station between now and 7 o'clock. That is an open invitation. Jodie, the producer, is getting in touch with them and making sure they know that. Going to take a call now from Herbie in Harrow, who's given me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Herbie, what do you make of this?
Oh, Peter, where the hell are we going? I mean to say, this is absolutely scandalous. You know, the public have a right to know what is going on in their community and what is happening to these immigrants that are staying in these hotels. If you've got somebody walking around raping girls or whatever... Well,
it's an alleged rape, and there are charges at the moment, but yes...
All crimes have been committed. We have a right to know. We need to be made aware that we could be in trouble or danger.
Yeah,
There's nothing wrong in that. Nothing wrong in that at all, Peter.
It's factual information, and the attempt was to suppress that factual information, Herbie.
Well, that's completely wrong, Peter. We cannot carry on like this, because you're going to you're setting light to a tinderbox here, and it's going to explode very, very badly, very, very quickly as well. You've got no right. These people have got no right to keep it from us. We have a right to know. We elect these people. We pay their salaries. They've got a right to tell us the problems we're going through.
You're absolutely right, Herbie. Thank you for that comment. Some breaking news now. 2 machete-wielding youths who smiled as they murdered a 14-year-old schoolboy on a South East London bus have been locked up for life by a judge at the Old Bailey. Minimum terms of 15 years and 10 months. When we get more on that, we will let you know about that. Also, just had it confirmed that on my Sunday show, I'm on between 10 and 1. On Sunday, we're going to be hearing from both the government and the opposition. So the Shadow Energy, Security and Net Zero Minister and Shadow Secretary of State for Scotland, Andrew Bowie, is going to be with us, as is James Murray, the Treasury Minister. So that's all coming up on Sunday's programme between 10 and 1. We'll be getting answers from some of our top politicians. Mark in Darlington has been in touch and says, you're technically wrong about the people in these hotels. They're all criminals as they've entered our country illegally. Regarding the attempted silencing of the councillor in Portsmouth, it's just further proof that the so-called authorities are willfully and deliberately hiding the truth from the British people where crimes and illegal immigrants are concerned. You'd have thought that after the grooming and rape scandal that these bozos would have learned their lesson. The country is in all kinds of trouble, says Mark in Darlington. You're absolutely right, they are illegal immigrants. They have committed a crime by coming to this country. What I suppose I should have phrased it better, Mark, and said that since then, and certainly this person, I'm sure, will plead their innocence, but he has been charged nonetheless. It is a factual point that he's been charged with rape and voyeurism following an alleged attack on the 11th of June. He was living in an asylum hotel at the time, and that information, the attempt was to suppress that. The attempt was for Portsmouth City Council to say to an elected councillor, don't talk about this because there are going to be problems with the community. Well, the suppression of that has meant there are even more problems in the community than there would have been already. There's going to be a protest tonight. I am very clear, as is George Madgwick, that I want people to protest peacefully. I'm sure the vast majority of them will. Let's hope all of them do. Stay within the law, make your point, make your voice heard. Or better still, give me a call, 0344 499 1000. Lots to discuss here on Talk.
$10K cash for Coldplay.
Play 10K cash for Coldplay with 10 grand in your hand tax-free plus 6 super hot tickets to witness Coldplay's sold-out Music of the Spheres tour from a VIP box at Wembley Stadium on August 22nd.
Tickets, top tunes and 10 grand cash.
Don't panic. Enter to play 10K for Coldplay at talksport.com/win and get ready for the feel-good gig of the summer. 10K for Coldplay is a joint TalkSport Limited competition run on TalkSport, Talk and Virgin Radio. See talksport.com for terms and conditions.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is talk.
Well, thank you so much to everybody who has been in touch. I am wading through many different messages. Let me read out a couple of them that have come through on Twitter and through, well, other methods, so obviously texting and so on. Tad says, I'm appalled by this. It's what we can expect from a Marxist regime from here on out until such a time as we are able to vote them out of office. That is, if we haven't been denied that right through their underhanded chicanery. The fight back is just getting underway. That should be a metaphorical fight back, by the way. Absolutely no advocation of violence from Tad or from me. Angie says, afternoon, Peter. The anger people are feeling is now rising each day. I'm afraid the situation in the UK will lead to more violence, and then our government will lock down its own people, saying it's for our own good. Well, listen, Angie, they've done it before. Amy says the issue of the migrant cover-up in Portsmouth is shocking. The council said they didn't want to create tensions in the community. Where was the thought for the safety of the local community, considering what the migrant was charged with? That is a perfectly valid opinion from Amy. Thank you for that. Unfortunately, says Jane, this has probably been going on for years in many areas. The public have seen with their own eyes how communities have been changed overnight. Neil says, I've just got in from work, poured myself a large G&T. This government will and are destroying this great country, says Neil in Labour-obliterated Wales. Chris says, the rally at the hotel this evening in Portsmouth, the fear we have is left-wing agitators mixing amongst peaceful protests. Well, let's hope it's all completely peaceful and people make their points peacefully. Dawn says, the Chief Executive of Portsmouth Council could not give a directive to councillors without the agreement of the leader of the council. There's a definite divide between the council officers and councillors. It is bizarre, says Dawn. Well, we are trying, certainly we're asking both the Chief Executive and the leader of that council whether they will come on this programme this evening. They are very welcome to do so. We're reaching out to them and they're welcome anytime between now and 7 o'clock. I want to talk now to Mike Jones, who's a migration expert. There are lots of different elements to this, and Mike, I know you've heard a little bit anyway of what we've been talking about there in regard to Portsmouth Council and the fact that there was a cover-up, a chief executive telling a councillor that he wasn't to talk about charges that have been brought against a man who was staying in a hotel locally. What do you make of that story?
Well, it's absolutely outrageous, but it's hardly surprising. I mean, we've seen institutional cover-ups over the grooming gang scandal, and we've seen a massive reluctance from the British government itself to publish, proper granular detail on migrant crimes, especially those crimes related to illegal immigrants. I mean, it takes investigative journalists to get under the bonnet of this. I mean, the Sun newspaper, for example, found that 1 in 100 illegal migrants at hotels are actually have been at court for various charges, such as robbery, GBH, and sexual assaults. But why isn't this data transparent? Why aren't they releasing this data? So that there's massive mistrust at the moment between the British state and the general public. We need transparency. But, this hasn't been forthcoming.
Well, it certainly appears that transparency was not on the mind of Portsmouth City Council when they had this edict that came out from its chief executive. As I say, we've read out their statement a number of times. We've attempted to give them a right of reply. They're very welcome to come on in the next 2.5 hours, or indeed on my shows over the weekend if they want to as well. Roger Hurst, the Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner for Essex, has said in an online statement that he's written to the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, outlining what he says the unsuitability of the Bell Hotel in Epping for housing asylum seekers. Another protest there last night, one arrest there. Tell me your thoughts on what is happening in Epping, because this seems to be happening in a number of places now. Epping at the epicentre of it apparently there, Mike.
Yeah, it's just really bizarre. It's very strange. Like, for example, a few days ago, we had counter-protesters essentially chaperoned to the flashpoint of the protests, where the police knew there would be, aggressive confrontations. There was a cordon established and they were sort of bussed back via police vans. Today, the police are out in force. There are no counter-protesters as far as I'm aware. And yet dispersal orders have been issued. People wearing masks have been arrested. So it's a very sort of Janus-faced response. I think the whole situation is very bizarre. I think, the most charitable interpretation is that the police adopted a pragmatic approach. They knew the counter-protesters were coming to the hotel itself. They may wanted to have preempted violence, but why did they bring the people in such close proximity, the anti-migrant hotel protesters? It's just a very bizarre situation. And the chief constable himself was very sheepish on giving details to the general public. You know, when he was asked about operational decisions, he said, well, you know, that's not my place to comment about it.
It's absolutely his place to comment. He's in charge of the operational decisions. I mean, it's outrageous. We now know, of course, that councillors in Epping have unanimously voted to urge the government anyway to close the Bell Hotel and the Phoenix Hotel. We'll see what happens there. But now we hear about Hampshire constabulary walking alongside activists to the Potters International Hotel, a site in Aldershot, housing asylum seekers on the location of regular anti-migrant demonstrations. This police action is continuing, and problems as well in Canary Wharf in London as the hotel erecting a ring of steel ahead of the migrant arrivals.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, I believe in Hampshire they're actually sort of chaperoning the counter-protesters again to the sort of flashpoints of the protests themselves. I mean, this is kind of bizarre. I mean, the police have said they have a right to facilitate freedom of assembly, but that's not entirely true. The police have a duty to maintain public order, and they often do interfere with freedom of assembly, you know, through dispersal orders, through kettling, through arrests. They've done this in the past. So it's a very bizarre situation. I'm not suggesting there's a sort of conspiracy there, but the optics of it are absolutely horrendous, because it does reaffirm the perception that there's two-tier policing, that, you know, sort of patriotic, small c conservative protesters are treated very differently to, you know, those on the far or radical left.
I wonder if I could ask you about the front page of The Sun today. We heard the Deputy Head of News was in yesterday Will was telling us about it. Asylum seekers staying in taxpayer-funded hotels, swiping thousands of pounds of designer gear from top stores. This is tipped off by a security firm. The Sun saw organised gangs coming out of Liberty in London, a very high-end department store. I think I bought a card in there once. It was about £5, far too expensive, and everything else is very expensive in there. Alarm dodging bags of luxury items. Liberty, Polo, Ralph Lauren, John Lewis headed back to their holiday in home, taking a Liberty and Gucci, Prada, and John Lewis is the front page of The Sun today. What do you make of this story?
Again, shocking but not surprising. I mean, I think one of the whistleblowers said that about, I think it was 70% of shoplifters in the West End are asylum seekers. I mean, there was also a man working in private security who said that his teams are at breaking points, and the area is verging on, you know, sort of anarchy, lawlessness. Again, this isn't surprising. I mean, if you look at the crime statistics in the Scandinavian countries, you know, you have the same picture repeated again and again. Asylum seekers from, you know, North Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, the Middle East, they're disproportionately involved in crime, whether that's, you know, sort of larceny, you know, sort of homicide or sexual offences. And, you know, we don't have that granular data here, but FOI requests have shown similar patterns, you know, from the Centre of Migration Control. So this doesn't surprise me. I mean, the thing people have to realise is that the vast majority of these people are not refugees.
Yeah.
There are a few fleeing war zones, and I think we should be sympathetic to that. But a lot of these people are economic migrants.
Yes, 76% of them are given asylum seeker status. That's a whole other discussion. Let's have that discussion perhaps on a future occasion. That's Mike Jones there, migration expert. Thanks for joining us, Mike. Thanks to Sharon, who says, I caught the back end of your discussion with the Reform Councillor earlier. I just want to say that this country is now in a situation where the government and the establishment are actively putting the British people at risk and in danger. This has to stop. I'm sure the Prime Minister and indeed the government are not immune from prosecution. I think this needs to be looked at quite seriously. Sharon, if you missed any of it, you can go back on YouTube. You can watch the whole thing. There are a couple of clips that have been put out at talkTV on our Twitter. I have retweeted them from my Twitter account at Peter Cardwell. Please follow me on there as well. We've got a Portsmouth resident who sent us a voice note. That is Richard. Let's hear what Richard has to say.
Good afternoon, Peter. Great show as usual. I am a Portsmouth resident, and I am absolutely horrified to hear that these elected councillors have been trying to cover up this horror They are disgusting, and every single one of them should resign. You know how many more councils across the country and police are covering up these dreadful, awful crimes against children and women. It has to stop, and these people need removing from the country. Thanks, Peter. This is Richard from London. Bye-bye.
Oh, Richard's from London. Sorry, he's not from Portsmouth, but he was talking about the Portsmouth story there. Richard, thank you. But I think he's a resident in Portsmouth, so thank you for that. And yes, it is the elected people, but it's also the unelected people. It's the chief executive of that council who we've asked on. We've asked for a right of reply. We've got the statement from them, which I've read out a number of times. I'm not going to read it out again. And we know what they think. And the fact is that they're not talking about it. They are suppressing the truth here. They're trying to, and George Madgwick and people like him are trying to tell the truth. We will tell the truth in this station because we're the home of free speech. We're going to give you the facts. We're going to let you make your decision as well. Another thing we're going to give you the facts on is the doctors' strike. We're going to talk about that in just a second. Roy Liddy is standing by. Are you someone who's had an operation cancelled today? Have you been affected by this strike? Are the junior doctors making your life more difficult? Let us know your thoughts. 0344 499 1000. Lots to discuss. Stay with us here on Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, thank you to everybody who has been in touch. Colin in County Durham says, something these corrupt officials and politicians need to remember, the truth will always out. Who do they think they are, says Colin in County Durham. Well, I am not alleging at all, nor is the station, nor is Colin, that these people are corrupt in any way. They are following the process. The fact is the process is flawed and there is a cover-up here. They really need to come clean and tell us the full story about this and to be transparent. Right, I want to talk now about the junior doctor strike. Maybe you are someone who was due to have an operation today or an appointment, a follow-up. Maybe there's something quite serious going on in your life. Tell us what has happened to you today. 0344 499 1000. Wes Streeting is, of course, the Health Secretary. He has been talking about the British Medical Association junior doctors. I'll never call them resident doctors. They're junior doctors. They should know their place. And this is what he has said about them.
This is a government that's been willing to work with the BMA and resident doctors. That's why they've had a 28.9% pay award given in the first year of this Labour government. It's why we were willing to go further on a whole range of working conditions that affect resident doctors' lives. And so here we are at the beginning of what will be 5 days of disruption to patients, extra pressure on other staff that was entirely avoidable. The reassurance I want to give the country is that loads of NHS staff and frontline leaders have mobilised brilliantly ahead of these strikes. I think we owe them a huge debt of thanks for all of the work that they are doing to keep the show on the road.
West Reading there, the Health Secretary. Well, earlier on, my colleague Mike Graham on Morning Glory interviewed Melissa Ryan. She's of the British Medical Association. She's the co-chairwoman of the British Medical Association's Junior Doctors Committee. She was on the picket line at St Thomas's Hospital. This is what she said to Mike Graham earlier on today.
Where were you a doctor in 2008?
Why are you asking me that?
How is that relevant?
Well, because you say you want the pay restored to 2008 levels, but I don't believe you were a doctor in 2008. Were you?
So 2008 is when austerity came in line, is when our pay started being eroded.
Were you a doctor in 2008? Were you a doctor in 2008?
We've had 17 years of pay erosion. And
were you a doctor in 2008?
To be reversed. It's not relevant about what happens with doctors
You're
when
asking
they
to
come
have
in.
your
It's a
pay
very long
restored to a time when you were a child.
Program.
How about you get your pocket money with 2008? How much was that? I mean, you know, you're just not a credible individual.
It's been eroded over 17 years, and what we want is for our pay erosion to be reversed. That's all we're asking for. We're asking for the government to come and negotiate, and so far all they've given us is empty
I'm not surprised they're not negotiating
and
with you, because you're insane. No, I don't think they should negotiate with you. I think they should fire you, quite frankly.
Mike Graham Gold there. Let's speak to Roy Lilly, who is a former NHS Trust chairman. Do junior doctors get it, Roy, do you think?
I think some do, Peter. I mean, we've got to look back and see why we got where we are. The BMA, you know, was a sort of dozy old geezer's lunch club, really. It wasn't. It was a medical association. It was all very cosy, but they were a trade union, but they kind of never bothered with that very much. And over time, they have really been asleep at the wheel. And it is true. I mean, I know there's an argument about how you calculate it, but it is true there's been value erosion in doctors' salaries. And so they've kind of ended up in this situation where a group called Doctors' Votes, which is like a group within the BMA, have taken over the BMA key committees, and they're running the strike. And they're very militant. I mean, they're a bit like, you know, what happened to the Labour Party when Corbyn was around. You know, there was like an organisation within an organisation. And so they're very militant. You know, it's no good saying, you know, in the old days, the doctors never would go on strike and all the rest of it. It isn't the old days. They pay a lot of money for their training. They come out of training now with 100,000 quid worth of debt. They're pushed around by pretty bad working conditions. And yes, you know, they've got a career for life, but they want a job and a life. You know, they're a very different group of people.
Yeah. And they're saying,
that's what we've got to get our heads around.
As Mike was very reasonably pointing out there, if they want pay parity with 2008, what if they've become a junior doctor in the last couple of days? They knew what they were getting into, or last couple of years. They knew what they were getting into. They knew what the pay was. And should you get something backdated, or perhaps not backdated, but to the level of 2008, if you weren't a doctor in 2008? That's the question I would ask. Especially when you've got a 22% pay rise in the last year anyway.
Exactly. And of course, they're also using RPI, Retail Price Index, to calculate the deficit as well, which, of course, pretty well everywhere else now we use CPI, Consumer Price Index. So, I mean, they've taken the numbers and they've taken the date, and it suits their argument. But the point is, Peter, I mean, I don't see there's a lot of point, really, in Wes Streeting. I mean, he's on the front page of the Mail this morning saying that I'm not going to be held ransom by the junior doctors. Well, actually he is, and he will be for the next 5 days. They have to stop all this sort of testosterone argy-bargy, and really they have to get round the table and talk. Because, I mean, what are Streeting's options? I mean, either he passes a quick law and says junior doctors can't go on strike, but they're not going to do that. Either he's going to try and tough it out, which is what Steve Barclay tried to do, who was the Conservative predecessor who first got tripped up by the strikes, or he sits down with it and tries to negotiate some kind of a deal. Now, the junior doctors do have a point in as much as when they settled last time, part of that package was also adjustments and improvements to their terms and conditions. And that's been, I mean, I don't know what's happened to that. It's all kind of fizzled out in a kind of congestion and fog of committees and bits and pieces. I mean, I think if Streeting had been sharper, and I think you and I had a conversation when they were last on strike, I said, this should be a 3-year deal.
Yeah,
It's a 2-year deal. I said they'll come back for afters in the 3rd year, and I'm right.
And lo and behold, that is what has happened.
Yes, and I think, Streeting would do better to say, look, we're very disappointed we didn't get this settled first time round. There are some structural issues that we have to deal with in about, how the junior doctors are dealt with. And I'm going to sit down and we're going to sort this out, because shouting at each other through the media, it won't work. I mean, and I know all rows, whether it's wars against countries, a row with a neighbour, or even in your family or at work. At the end, you have to sit down and settle it. And this kind of rhetoric, I don't think helps. And it doesn't bring us any closer to a settlement. And they've got a mandate up till Christmas. So Streeting, I think, has got to be a lot smarter.
Okay, Roy, thank you, as always. Roy Lilly there, former NHS Trust Chairman. Thanks to loads of people who are getting in touch about this story to do with the council in Portsmouth suppressing the truth there. The Chief Executive does not have the authority to order an elected official to do anything, says Eric in Barnsley. They answer only to the electorate. The Employment Committee decision is just a stitch-up, in my opinion. That's Eric in Barnsley. Thank you for that. Thanks to George, who says, Tim, who says, I'm so pleased to see a politician with honour. Well done, George. That is George Madrick there, who is a Reform UK councillor in Portsmouth. Why is Starmer not listening to the British people, says Margaret in Birmingham. Thousands of us voicing our opinion thanks to Talk. The paper's front page is full of migrants crossing the channel day after day. He is burying his head in the sand, hoping it will all go away. Well, we have had enough of this weak, incompetent Prime Minister. He has to resign. Jane says, unfortunately, this has probably been going on, talking about the Portsmouth situation, for years in many areas. The public have seen with their own eyes how communities have been changed overnight. Luke in Blackpool says, I'm so angry. How do you vent your anger when people in power never listen? No wonder people resort to extreme behaviour. Well, don't resort to extreme behaviour. Pick up the phone, 0344 499 1000. Let us know what you think. We're going to talk about Trump. He is coming to the United Kingdom. He's going to open a Scottish golf course and meet Starmer on Monday. This is the background of the big scandal around the Epstein files as well. No better man than Michael Yaki, US political analyst, who will be with us in the studio in a second. We're going to have a yak with Yaki. Stay tuned for that.
10K cash for Coldplay.
Play 10K cash for Coldplay with 10 grand in your hand tax-free plus 6 super hot tickets to witness Coldplay's sold-out Music of the Spheres tour from a VIP box at Wembley Stadium on August 22nd.
Tickets, top tunes and 10 grand cash.
Don't panic. Enter to play 10K for Coldplay at talksport.com/win and get ready for the feel-good gig of the summer. 10K for Coldplay is a joint TalkSport Limited competition run on TalkSport, Talk and Virgin Radio. See talksport.com for terms and conditions.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, some breaking news now on Talk, and that is that the BAFTA-nominated actor Michael Ward, who has appeared in Blue Story and Top Boy, he has been charged with rape and sexual assault. That's according to the Crown Prosecution Service. Blue Story, of course, is the film based on his 2014 YouTube series of the same name, which in turn is based on real-life gangs, the Peckham Boys and Ghetto Boys. And Top Boy is, of course, a British crime thriller series that is set in the fictional summer house estate in the London borough of Hackney. So two very popular series, and this actor who's been nominated for a BAFTA, Michael Ward is his name. He's appeared in Blue Story and Top Boy. He has been charged with rape and sexual assault. That's according to the Metropolitan Police, and the Crown Prosecution Service, of course, will have made a decision on that as well. We'll bring you any developments on that between now and 7. So that is Michael Ward, the BAFTA-nominated actor charged with rape and sexual assault. Stay with us here on Talk. Lots to discuss with Michael Yackey. Great to see you in the studio again, Michael. How are you doing?
I'm always so happy to see you. It's a beautiful London summer day.
And another American coming very, very soon. Michael is, of course, US political analyst and former senior advisor to Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi. And Michael, we know that your president is on his way. What's he going to be doing when he's here?
Well, he is apparently going to be meeting with the Prime Minister on Monday, but prior to all that, he's going to be taking up a little golf and getting a new golf resort he's opening in Aberdeen that he's named after his mother Mary, and he's going to be, well, people are trying to determine whether or not it's a 4 or 5 day vacation, but because he's meeting with the Prime Minister, it's all official business.
Yes, so this is not the state visit. The state visit comes
this is just,
later, but this is just a visit.
A state of the golf course visit.
A state of the golf course, not state of the nation, but state of the golf course. Have you ever teed off on a Trump golf course?
I've been invited many times, and I will have to say that I have not.
You have not? Well, I think that's an opportunity missed, Michael. You of course, know US politics back to front. Tell us about this controversy over the Epstein files and what's happening with where is Trump at the moment, because his MAGA base, he seems to have fallen out with them in a couple of ways.
Well, it's interesting because one of his appeals to the MAGA base was that he was always going to talk straight and talk tough about Jeffrey Epstein, because for the crew behind MAGA, they have an obsession with the fact that they think that liberal elites were basically running a child prostitution ring and being child predators all across the country. There was an infamous thing called Pizzagate next to the White House. Yep. So here comes Donald Trump. He's saying, I was friends with Jeffrey Epstein, but way before he started being convicted of being with children, and I'll get all the truth out. And he said this during the 2016 campaign. During the 2024 campaign, he was talking about he will appoint people to get the facts out, turn the list out, make it all public. So the MAGA base was eagerly anticipating to see who are going to be these liberal democratic sexual deviants. And then his attorney general and his FBI director, especially his FBI director, who went on, did whole podcasts on Jeffrey Epstein, said, nothing to see here, folks. And now, as things have turned out, there is a birthday wishes book that apparently Ghislaine Maxwell put together.
Yes.
And Trump allegedly did a semi-pornographic drawing and a birthday greetings to to him, and then more stuff has started to come out, and
he has alleged that this is not true.
Well, he has sued various entities.
The Wall Street Journal is the publication should, for full transparency, said the Wall Street Journal is owned by the same company that owns Talk, and we're in a situation where Trump is now saying that he's going to sue the Wall Street Journal for this, for libel. He says it didn't happen, but certainly the reporting in the Wall Street Journal is that this birthday message was sent. But of course, the two men did fall out, didn't they, Trump and Epstein?
They did, and they weren't together. But when they were together, what did they know? And what happens though is if you're not transparent as you said you were going to be, if you're not as forthright as you said you were going to be, then the paranoia and conspiracy theories kick into an even greater gear. It's like, it's so big that now President Trump is busy trying to keep it under wraps. And amidst all this, and this is something that we talked about a few weeks ago, I said on this show that I don't think it was any coincidence that Ghislaine Maxwell's appeals were going on at the same time. All of a sudden, this information started appearing.
Yeah.
And now Justice wants to talk to Ghislaine Maxwell.
And they have. The Deputy Attorney General talking to her yesterday.
And they were saying, oh, we're so happy that President Trump is committed to the truth, because they want to get their sentence reduced. They want it dropped or reduced substantially. And there's one person who could say that book was a pile of nonsense.
Yeah.
And that's Ghislaine Maxwell.
So where are we politically in all of this? Where are the Republicans? What are the Democrats saying about it?
Well, the Democrats had a very, very fun time.
Or are they just sitting back, letting it all happen?
Last week. No, what they did is because the MAGA base is divided, you had a number of very conservative members of Congress trying to get the Congress to vote to release the grand jury testimony and to bring it all forward. And then the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, decided, I think it's time to go on summer recess and gavel it down. But not before a couple committees did send out subpoenas to Ghislaine Maxwell. So this is going to continue. It's going to be following him. I think that the Stop Trump Coalition, which is going to be in full force in Scotland this weekend. I think they have a big demonstration tomorrow. I would be very surprised if there were not very large printed, hand-printed, painted, whatever it is, pictures of Jeffrey Epstein and the president together.
Interesting. I just wonder as well for Trump, I mean, obviously he's only been president for such a short period of time now in his second term, but people are thinking about the midterms, as they always do. There's always an election to look forward to. I just wonder, does some of this kind of slightly indicate his authority draining away, maybe a little bit, or not?
Not really his authority, but maybe the MAGA belief that what he was selling, they no longer can buy.
Okay.
Which is something that the Republicans are going to be very worried about in about 12 months, because when the midterms come along, and you have people who aren't motivated, who think we were sold a sack of lies, we're going to stay home and cry in our beer and not vote, that's going to help the Democrats out, and that's the one firewall left that Trump can't do anything about, is if the Democrats take back the Congress next year.
Michael, thank you so much as always. Michael Yaki, the US political analyst there, former senior advisor to Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi. Just a little bit more on that charge against the BAFTA-nominated actor Michael Ward. He's been charged with rape and sexual assault. Caroline Bacchus, who's the Deputy Chief Crown Prosecutor for CPS London South, says, having carefully reviewed a file of evidence, the Crown Prosecution Service has authorised the Metropolitan Police to charge Michael Ward, 27, with 2 counts of rape, 2 counts of assault by penetration and 1 count of sexual assault against a woman in January 23. He will appear at Thames Magistrates Court on Thursday, the 20th of August. We'll bring you the latest on that. Lots more to come. Stay with us here on Talk.
the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good evening, this is Drive. I'm Peter Cardwell. Thank you so much for your company. Loads to talk about in the next couple of hours before Kevin O'Sullivan comes up at 7. The doctor strike will help those who want the NHS to fail. That's what the Prime Minister says. He's been writing for the Times today. We're also talking about this big story in Portsmouth. There's going to be a protest in an hour's time because the Chief Executive of Portsmouth City Council asked at least one councillor, George Madgwick, who spoke to us an hour ago, to not mention and not make public and not discuss the fact that an asylum seeker who was living in a local hotel was charged with sexual offences. We talked to George about that. He made a formal complaint saying that she should be disciplined. The council says she has no case to answer. Lots of people getting in touch about that. We'll replay a little clip of what George said in a minute or two. We'll talk as well about the number of farms shutting in the wake of the inheritance tax rate, confusion over Jeremy Corbyn's launch of Your Party, there's no name for it yet, shoplifting epidemic. We're talking as well about the police commissioner from Epping Police telling the police and crime commissioner telling the government to stop sending migrants to unsuitable hotels to avoid fueling community tension. Loads to discuss between now and 7. Let us know your thoughts. 0344 499 1000. Maybe you've been caught up in the doctor strike today. Maybe you had an appointment that was postponed because of what the junior doctors are doing. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell. Send me a voice note, less than a minute, please. You can send me a WhatsApp text message. You can give me a ring. All of those things on 0344 499 1000. Loads to discuss between now and 7. Stay with me here on Talk. We also had the news as well about the actor in Top Boy. This is the BAFTA-nominated actor Michael Ward. He's appeared in Top Boy and Blue Story. He's been charged with rape and sexual assault, according to the Metropolitan Police, and he's going to appear in court on the 28th of August. That is some breaking news in the last few minutes. Thanks to everybody who has been in touch about all sorts of things. We'll be talking to Michael Yaki as well. A US political commentator, Mick, says the people in Scotland protesting against Trump are very naive. He is proud of his mother's roots and could fund a lot of Scottish projects in the beleaguered islands if his ego was massaged properly. Taff in Dover says, regarding the junior doctors, what they don't say is that the taxpayer put 23% into their pension and they retire on 75% of their salary, says Taff. Thank you for that. Yeah, we're going to talk about those doctors right now, actually. And Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, has said that the BMA strike, British Medical Association strike, is unnecessary. This is what he has been saying.
As we begin 5 days of totally unnecessary strike action by the BMA, I'm really proud of the way the NHS leaders and frontline staff have prepared and mobilised to minimise the disruption and minimise the risk of harm to patients. We've seen an extraordinary response, including people cancelling their leave, turning up for work, and resident doctors themselves ignoring their union to be there for patients. The BMA's action is so irresponsible. They had a 28.9% pay award from this government in our first year. There was also an offer to work with them on other things that affect resident doctors' working lives. And that's why I think this is such reckless action. This government will not allow the BMA to hold the country to ransom, and we will continue to make progress on NHS improvement as we've done in our first year.
Leslie's been in touch and says, hi Peter, do you remember when Wes Streeting said he had brought the doctors back to work, something the Tories failed to do? And here we are after 12 months and their 22% pay rise wasn't enough. They're back for more. Leslie, you have said it far better than I could. You've made it really clear. Let's talk to someone else who speaks common sense. That's Candace Holdsworth, the writer and broadcaster. Unsurprisingly, if you capitulate to the doctors, you give them 22%, they come back and say, actually, we want another 29.2%. Candace, I don't know what you think, but I think it's outrageous.
I do. I don't know what their case is. I mean, their pay is broadly in line with the Western average. They earn the same amounts as junior doctors in the US, in Australia. In fact, they earn more than doctors in Western Europe. I think the only outlier is Canada. But the junior doctors in Canada take on a lot more responsibility. So, I mean, if they want to take on more responsibility as junior doctors, then maybe, but that doesn't seem to be the case. And as always, what always gets left out in all these strike actions is what about the patients? I mean, they may get higher pay. Do we get improved care? Probably not. I mean, I think back to a year ago, pretty much a year ago, I was actually in hospital with meningitis. I was so ill and I was on a ward with women with like very serious infections. I cannot imagine what it would have been like with a strike action going on if you maybe had one consultant.
Well, it's very, very worrying. First of all, I know we've talked about it before, Candice, but I'm just so sorry to hear you went through that with the meningitis. There are so many people today who will be, who will have gone for follow-up appointments, who will have gone into A&E, and the service is reduced because of this strike action. That's the point, I suppose. They want us to talk about it. They want to make their case. But at the same time, they've made their case. They've got their 22% pay rise. Don't know about you, Candice. I haven't had a 22% pay rise in the last year.
No, people don't. Absolutely. This is it, right? This is the atmosphere that they're operating in, where everyone is really struggling financially. And people just don't see doctors as poorly remunerated. I mean, I've talked about their salaries, but I mean, if you look at the entire package, I mean, they get really, really generous pensions, massively generous pensions. So, I mean, do we want to have a conversation about that? Do they want to prioritize the present rather than the future? Maybe get more now rather than in their pensions? But I don't know if they do. I just think that the BMA has become increasingly radicalized. They seem to have a unique sense of victimhood and persecution, that they're somehow hard done by. They're not. And I think also just the hard reality is that they see the Labour government as a soft touch. I mean, the Labour government just kept saying to the Tories when they were in power, get round the table, sit down. And then the Labour government did that, basically capitulated, and now, they're going for them again, which everyone predicted they would. That is the way human psychology works. I like to hear people like Wes Streeting talking a bit tougher. I think they do need to be a bit tougher. I think some of the appeals that Keir Starmer has made, saying things like, oh, people think, if you do this, you're going to embolden people who want to destroy the NHS. I'm sorry, that's just weak. You can't talk like that. That's ideological talk. I think what they have to do is they have to say, this is our final offer, take it or leave it. And I promise you, the public are not with them on this. They are not with them.
Yeah, and the polling certainly bears that out. Keir Starmer has certainly been writing about this today. He's been writing in the Times newspaper today as well, in the last-ditch a plea to avert the doctors' strike. He's urged doctors not to follow the British Medical Association down this damaging road, warning it would blight the lives of patients and cause real damage. Our NHS and country needs you. What the Prime Minister should be focusing on as well, I think, is migration in this country. There are so many stories around the Epping councillors calling for the government to close the 2 migrant hotels in an urgent meeting. Those are the ones, including the Bell Hotel, that are causing all sorts of problems for them. Also, the Police and Crime Commissioner telling the government to stop sending migrants to unsuitable hotels to avoid fuelling community tension. We saw another protest, largely peaceful, almost entirely peaceful last night, only one arrest around the Bell Hotel. And we know that there are many people who are really, really concerned about what's happening in Epping and right across the country as well, Candice.
Yeah, I think things have reached boiling points. I mean, the whole asylum system has just lost public support, if it ever had it. I don't think it has any democratic legitimacy. I think that these systems are, the asylum systems are largely opaque to the public. People have absolutely no idea on what basis people are granted asylum. And they just want it done with now. They look at these asylum hotels, they look at the cost of them, and they think this cannot be justified, especially when you're making cuts to things like the winter fuel allowance, for instance. I think this is another thing that Keir Starmer just struggles to be hard-headed about. I mean, it's the same with the NHS. I mean, he's deeply ideological when it comes to these issues. His background in human rights law, for instance, meant that he said that the Rwanda scheme was cruel. Meanwhile, it's probably one of the best things we had to manage incentives. That's how you deal with it. People will not make the journey here if they think they have a very low chance of actually getting asylum, or they'll be sent to Rwanda. That's how it works. That's why the French have been so critical of us, because people know if they come here on the small boats, they have a very, very, very high chance of their asylum case being successful. So they keep coming, and you've seen that in the last few years. The numbers of small boats have just rocketed. And now, the public are starting to get really, really, really angry about it. I mean, this was sparked off by someone who'd committed a sexual assault. I think there's that perception as well that, people are coming in from countries where women are not respected, where they're not treated well, and people have had enough, and now the public are just saying no. I mean, like you say, so far these protests have been peaceful, But I
should say, sorry to interrupt you there, Candice, but I should say just specifically when it comes to Essex and what you're talking about there, this is someone who was charged with sexually assaulting 2 teenage girls just days after arriving in Britain. He's denied that accusation. We just want to be really careful about the legal aspect of that. Certainly, there's no suggestion he's committed it. Obviously, well, there is a suggestion that he's been charged, but certainly I'm sure he would plead his innocence in that. But certainly there are a number of times, and it seems to be this aspect, the thing that pushes people over the edge that I'm seeing, Candice, and I wonder what you think as well, is, you know, they say, actually, is this a good thing? Is this something that we want? We're not sure this is a good thing for our area. Then there are low-level problems, and then there are high-level problems when there are things like, for example, charges against people for sexual assault. We know that was the case in Ballymena previously in Northern Ireland. There was completely unacceptable law-breaking there. We know that was the case with a charge, for example, which the person denies, I'm sure, in Epping, and with what I was talking about a little bit earlier in the programme as well in regard to Portsmouth, a charge which I'm sure is denied as well. And that seems to be the trigger for so much, for people who've been saying for a long period of time, this is not a good idea, this is going to be problematic, and they see the effects of it, and then something like this happens and it pushes people over the edge, and then they're called, you know, right-wing thugs when they clearly are not. They're people who just care about their community.
Exactly, but the thing is, people vote in elections, and this is one of the issues they vote on. They want the government to get on top of it, and they just never have. And this is why you're seeing a huge surge in support for reform, because reform has always been very plain spoken about this and always been very plain spoken, and people think, well, maybe they'll finally be able to solve it. It's just, it doesn't matter who people have voted for, whether it's Labour or Conservative, nothing is ever done about it. The system just goes on and on and on and on. So people have become disaffected, and now they don't trust in the electoral process. So they're getting out onto the streets, and I think that they think that's the only way that they can apply political pressure.
Well, you talked about Reform UK there. One of their councillors, George Madgwick, I spoke to him about an hour ago about this. I asked him what the council in Portsmouth did to get more information from him, and this is what he said to me.
Nothing. And I've been told, you know, I've not been told how the matrix or how they just come to their decision. I've not been told whether my human rights have been considered as part of the decision-making process. As I say, they received my complaint in full. They received the council officers their point in full, and they made a decision based on that. But, you know, they had a several-hour meeting, and during that whole process, they weren't able to cross-question. So they didn't have the ability to ask me questions, or you know, if they had an opinion, they couldn't clarify that opinion. So how can they come to a reasoned decision without actually being able to question the person that's made the complaint? It's fundamentally flawed. And now, unfortunately, now these councillors, these parties are now essentially part of this cover-up, because they're now protecting the chief executive officer, who, in my opinion, and it is an opinion, my opinion, has done something wildly inappropriate.
That was Councillor George Madgwick talking to me a little bit earlier on. And just to say, Portsmouth City Council, a spokesman for them, says the council does not comment on any matters relating to individual members of staff. Well, we do comment on them, and we are commenting on the fact that Natalie Brahma-Pearl, who is the Chief Executive of Portsmouth City Council, did something that I don't think she should have done, and there has not been a transparent process around this, and there's been no reply from her, or indeed the leader of the council, who we have attempted to get on the programme. Candice, your reaction to this specific situation?
Yeah, I think that what they're storing up, what they're bubbling up is another, what's bubbling up is another grooming gang scandal. I mean, you know, you go to places like Rotherham, Rochdale, you know, councillors, instead of just facing the issue head on and trying to solve it, you know, they sort of try to put a dampener on it, or tell people to be quiet, or not make such a fuss. And that is like the absolute wrong response, because that is just building up resentment. And I think we've all noticed that the country's in a sour mood, a really sour mood. And I think that the asylum system is really the cause of it. And what people in political power have to do is they have to be honest about it, and they have to face it. If they don't, if they try and do all these things, they're going to make people so angry, because people feel extremely disempowered, like their elected representatives are not listening to them.
Speaking about feeling disempowered, the farmers we're going to talk about a little bit later on, and I just wonder what your thoughts are around that, because what we have seen, some really, really shocking statistics. Let me see if I can just find them here in front of me. Record numbers of farms shutting in the wake of inheritance tax raids. This is 6,365 agriculture, forestry and fishing businesses have closed over the past year, according to the Office for National Statistics, the highest since quarterly data was first published in 2017.
Wow. I mean, this is that they got this so horribly wrong, because the Treasury, I think, predicted that it would be something like 500 businesses would be affected by this. I mean, they've got it wrong by a massive amount. And it's not just with that. I mean, you look at the national insurance raid. I mean, how many job closures, how many job losses have resulted from that? The raid on private schools, they haven't got anywhere near the tax take that they said they were going to get from that. And there's no accountability. I mean, their figures are so off, their forecasts are so off. And it just carries on and on and on and on. And there's no accountability. They're immiserating people. Everyone predicted this would happen with the farm tax. They said that this would happen, that people would not start up new farms. There'd be a huge number of closures. People wouldn't be able to pass on their farms to their children, because that's what farming is. Farming is a generational thing. Most people do it because it's in their bones. Their parents did it.
Well, you've got to, and I come from a whole side of my family are farmers, and you've got to love it. It's got to be something you've got to love to do, and that inheritance aspect is something that is really unfair, I think. Candice, thank you as always. That is Candice Holdsworth there, the writer and broadcaster. No reply, as I say, from the Chief Executive of Portsmouth City Council, Natalie Brahma-Pearl, or Steve Pitt, who's the Liberal Democrat councillor, who've been saying there's an open invitation. You can come on my show. You can talk about the situation in Portsmouth. It is coming up to 5:20 now. You can come on between now and 7 o'clock this evening. You can come on my shows on Saturday or Sunday. And next week, Jeremy's doing Drive on Monday, but I'm doing Drive the rest of the week as he is going on his holidays. Leslie has been in touch and says, "Hi Peter, why doesn't Labour realise that farmers don't inherit money? They inherit hard work, 365 days a year, feeding us and looking after our green and pleasant land." Rachel says, "I've always supported the junior doctors, but not anymore. I certainly have no respect for any doctor who strikes knowing it's putting patients at risk. They should be ashamed of themselves." Gary says, "If you look back at the average wage in the UK in 2008 and compare it to the average wage today, it has gone up by less in percentage terms than the average pay of those resident doctors had gone up by. So the inescapable conclusion is that if junior doctors get a big pay rise, it's going to have to be paid for by people who've seen their wages go up by less than over the last 17 years than those junior doctors who've seen their pay rise. Doesn't seem very fair." Neil says, "What is the difference between Wes Streeting and a puppet? The puppet would never let the BMA pull their strings." Sally says, "What happens to these greedy, woke junior doctors when their deaths is a direct result of their strike? I hope they can live with themselves," says Sally. And Mart says, "All hotels are unsuitable for illegal immigrants. They should be put in tents or sent back to France." And finally, just about Portsmouth as well, Portsmouth City Council, Sharon in South Staffordshire says, "Listening about the Portsmouth Council, and all I'm thinking is, have we learned nothing from the grooming gang scandal and cover-ups? The same type of playbook," says Sharon. Lots more to discuss, including Jeremy Corbyn's new party. What should it be called? Well, plenty of suggestions coming in. Let me know yours. Text me 87222. Lots to discuss between now and 7, including that. We'll talk to Councillor Hilary Shan, who is chairwoman of We Deserve Better, an independent councillor in Worthing. We'll talk to her in just a second, see what she thinks, see what you think too. Stay with us.
10K cash for Coldplay.
Play 10K cash for Coldplay with 10 grand in your hand tax-free plus 6 super hot tickets to witness Coldplay's sold-out Music of the Spheres tour from a VIP box at Wembley Stadium on August 22nd.
Tickets, top tunes and 10 grand cash.
Don't panic. Enter to play 10K for Coldplay at talksport.com/win and get ready for the feel-good gig of the summer. 10K for Coldplay is a joint TalkSport Limited competition run on TalkSport, Talk and Virgin Radio. See talksport.com for terms and conditions.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, Jeremy Corbyn has left Labour. In fact, he was expelled from the party. He lost the whip, and then he decided to stand as an independent in his constituency in London. He has now teamed up with another left-wing Labour MP, Zara Sultana, and is setting up a new political party. But it had a bit of a bumpy start because they were immediately forced to clear up confusion over the name, and originally to play down claims of a split because Jeremy Corbyn apparently wasn't told that it had been launched. Then the launch in July happened. Then there was an unveiling of a new movement yesterday dubbed Your Party. They say, you know, what do you want from your party? But it's not called Your Party, which is a little bit tricky. Meanwhile, obviously, one of the things that Zara Sultana and Jeremy Corbyn care a lot about very much is the Palestinian cause. They want a Palestinian state to be recognised, and Sir Keir Starmer is under increasing pressure to recognise a Palestinian state. The French have done that. 221 MPs have signed a cross-party letter demanding he take the step. It's being organised by Labour backbencher Sarah Champion, who also sits in the International Development Committee. She's the chairwoman of that. But really, I suppose what I want to talk about is this radical left-wing movement, the idea of Jeremy Corbyn and Zara Sultana setting up this party. What should it be? What should it stand for? Are you going to vote for it? Councillor Hilary Shan is the chairwoman of We Deserve Better. She's an independent councillor in Worthing. Hilary, you're very welcome to the programme. What do you make of this new party?
Hi, Peter. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I think it's a really exciting moment for British politics. You know, there's been a huge gap left on the left of British politics, and this is a really exciting move that looks to fill it.
Why are you excited? What about this party do you like?
I mean, the fact that it's going to be a grassroots founded party, you know, we've seen that. They're going to have a founding conference where the members will decide. You know, we've already seen nearly 250,000 people sign up for it in just 24 hours. It shows that there's
we've heard that figure of 200,000 people signing up for it. Are they actually paying any money to do so, or are they just putting their names on the mailing list?
Yeah, I don't believe there's any payment at the moment, but, you know, you could see when it launched, there was 500 people a minute signing up. So, you know, it's very obvious that there's an appetite for what they are looking to deliver.
Jeremy Corbyn is still popular. Would you join the party? Are you thinking of joining it, Hilary?
Yeah, certainly would consider it. Well, I think, you know, we can't get ahead of ourselves. We don't know what it's going to look like yet, but I think it's really great. But I think the main thing is, and, you know, what We Deserve Better are saying, is that we've got to be really careful here. And on the left of politics, we need a pact now between this new party, the Green Party, and independents as well, to make sure that we can get as many of these progressive candidates elected in the next election and work together.
What is wrong, from your position on the left, Hilary, what is wrong with what the Labour Party is doing at the moment? Because it would say, and Keir Starmer would say, that they are the left in this country.
I mean, I think the question which would be easier to answer is what are they doing right? And I mean, if you ask anybody in the country right now, not very much. I mean, they are an absolute joke when it comes to claiming to be a left-wing party. I mean, what we're seeing now is not only a Tory imitation party, it's kind of a cheap tribute act to reform as well. You know, they don't know what they're doing. You know, they've been an abject disaster in government, and their approval ratings show that.
So I mean, some people would say that actually the left is very split already. I know you're saying, and it's a perfectly valid point, to say that the parties on the left, some would say the far left, whatever, more left wing than Labour anyway. Let's agree. The Green Party, you're an independent. Various people should come together to form more of a grouping. I just wonder from Labour's perspective. I mean, you're presumably quite happy that they will lose votes to this, but some people would say, actually, I'm sure there are lots of people in Labour saying, well, this is just going to split the left even more.
Well, I think that is, that's why we need the left to work together now so that that doesn't happen. And that's why we need to get a pact and make sure that these parties are speaking to each other. Zach Polanski, who's running for leadership of the Green Party, has said he's open to working with the new party. That's excellent news. And that's the really key thing now, that we don't have that left split, that we do work together to make sure that, we're all singing from the same hymn sheet, as it were.
Okay, Hilary, thank you very much. That's Councillor Hilary Shan, chairwoman of We Deserve Better, an independent councillor in Worthing. We'll see what happens about Jeremy Corbyn's party. His politics are not mine, as you know. I just wonder what you think about it. Would you join it? Are you worried about it? Or is it something that you are interested in? 0344 499 1000. Just in regard to that point about Palestine, I think I've got it. I think I've killed the fly. Where is it? I think I've killed it. Okay, so there's a fly in this studio yesterday and today. I think I've just killed it, but I can't see where it is. So I'll keep you updated, but I think I've killed the fly. Anyway, back to Palestine being represented as a state, or recognised as a state. Keir Starmer under pressure, 221 MPs. Earlier this month, nearly 60 of them called on David Lammy, the Foreign Secretary, to immediately recognise Palestine as a state in a private letter. The new call showing how dissatisfied many still are with the government's refusal to change its stance on the issue. France is saying it will. Trump has dismissed Macron's plan to recognise Palestine as a state. Many other countries do that worldwide, but not really Western nations. And the question is, are you actually rewarding Hamas? In fact, I don't think it's a question. I think it's fairly straightforward that you are rewarding Hamas for the 7th of October by recognising Palestine as a state. I want there to be a two-state solution eventually. I don't want there to be a one-state solution, which is what Hamas wants, because it wants to destroy Israel. What I do want there to be is peace in the Middle East. Will this bring it closer if France recognises Palestine as a state? I don't think it will at this stage. I think it should be done, but at a later stage when things are better. Should say the President of the EU Commission and Chesney Hawkes lookalike Ursula von der Leyen has said she's going to meet Donald Trump in Scotland on Sunday, so she is coming over, perhaps her one and only visit to Scotland. Von der Leyen said the decision for a meeting was made following a call with the US leader, and they would discuss transatlantic trade relations. Well, that means tariffs, so tariffs are on the agenda there, and we will of course bring you up to date on all of that. My shows, of course, between 10 and 1 tomorrow and Sunday, and we'll look ahead to that of course on Sunday, so lots to discuss there. Thank you to Bill in Thailand, who says, good afternoon Peter, where is Yvette Cooper? Why is she not doing her job? She must have gone on holiday. Free flights, free food, free medical needs, spending money, vouchers for clothes and a free mobile phone. Ring any bells to do with asylum there of course. Rich in Swindon says the European Union wants nothing more than to see us fail, so they can blame it all on Brexit, just as other members are considering leaving the Union. They want to be able to say, leave it if you want, but look what's happened to the UK since they left. Our politicians need to realise we have no allies anymore, especially not the EU. We can make Britain great again as soon as we realise no country wants to help us. We've done it before, let's do it again. Leslie says, when Jess Phillips brought in mandatory reporting of abuse, did she mean report it but keep it out of the public eye? Referring to her story about Portsmouth. Keith says, how long will it be before councils and police forces start bringing in super injunctions to cover up any alleged sexual crimes by illegal immigrants claiming civil unrest if their name is released? Keith, I think that is a very legitimate worry. Andy in Southampton says your guest earlier was absolutely right. What is happening in Portsmouth is repeating exactly what happened with the grooming gangs councils. Neil says weekly Palestine marches for months, not one dispersal order. Mothers trying to protest against alleged sex offenders banned. This government hates the locals. Two-tier policing is anti the indigenous population. And Nadine says, I think the fact, Cardi P, that Epping Forest Council voted unanimously to close the Bell Hotel yesterday is in fact hugely encouraging, a factor in all the negatives that we continue to discuss. Whether the Home Secretary will order this to actually go ahead is yet to be seen, but what it does is prove the power of a peaceful protest by local mothers, parents parents and grandparents can bring change, and this should be encouraged anywhere else because illegals are being housed. Being concerned for one's children sends a hugely powerful message to the authorities. Dawn in Chelmsford says it's now obvious Keir Starmer is completely out of his depth. Rather than diffusing the protest flashpoints, he's more interested in international affairs and branding protesters as far right. This will end badly. Lots more to discuss. We're going to talk in just a second to Andrew Allison, who is head of campaigns at the Popular Conservatives, about a swearing ban. Apparently it has been misunderstood. Also, a hero fireman disciplined for failing to call out colleagues for using the word fireman. You can't say fireman anymore. A man who fights fires is not a fireman, apparently. Well, they are. Factually, they are. Well, you can use it here because we are, of course, the home of free speech. Let me know your thoughts on all of these stories. 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
John Boy in the West Midlands presumably doesn't have a typewriter like his Walton's namesake. He says, I've just been talking to a friend of mine who is a police officer, and she said that they're on alert as trouble is expected. What on earth is happening to my country, your country, our country? All this trouble lies at the feet of Starmer and all of those who went before him. Surely he cannot last much longer. He has to go now, says John Boy. Mr. Cardwell, we no longer live in a democracy. This government is a dictatorship. If you think otherwise, then you are delusional. Well, thank you for that. Please call me Peter. Bill in Fleet says, as a Hampshire resident, I have confidence the police won't deliver activists by van to protest. Escorting or supplying a safe channel as you get at football matches is fine. Driving them, not so fine. Jackie in Blackpool, the situation in Portsmouth is a result of the poison that exists throughout our councils and public services, for the same poison that's allowed the rape gangs to get away with their vile crimes for so long. Leslie says West Streeting obviously doesn't know how unions operate. Given once and they always come back for more. Ed says this is very anecdotal, but I was just driving through Wigan and Reform UK holding a placard asking people to beep, and I would say 8 or 9 out of every 10 cars is beeping. Quite striking, I would say. Another person says Starmer was quick to call those in Southport right-wing thugs who travelled into Southport. Has he criticised the left-wing thugs from outside Epping shipped in by police? Not so far. And Pat says, we did not get a pay rise this year due to the cost of the increase in national insurance to the company that I work for. Sean says, my daughter is a junior doctor. Please do not tar all junior doctors as strikers or greedy. My daughter is working today and voted against the strike. Sean, good for your doctor daughter. You must be very proud of her. And on a number of fronts, not least becoming a doctor is a very, very difficult thing to do. good for her and good for her for working today. So yeah, very, very happy to point that out. Similarly on the train drivers, everybody says, oh, the train drivers got a huge pay rise. Some of them did, the ASLEF drivers did, and every time I say, oh, all the train drivers did, I get messages saying, well, it's just the ASLEF train drivers. Let's talk about a swearing ban. This is Thanet District Council is discussing £100 fines for antisocial behaviour and language that causes distress, alarm or harassment. Let's talk to Andrew Allison about this. Andrew is, of course, the head of campaigns for Popular Conservatism. Andrew, I've been guilty of saying the odd word, not on air, hopefully, but certainly in our newsroom. It is. I was referring to a senior politician earlier, and I used a very bad word when I was referring to him. Newsrooms are full of people who use bad language, and that's fine, I suppose, because there aren't children around. But are you going to start fining people £100 if they live in Thanet? What do you make of this plan?
Well, I'm instinctively opposed to any form of punishment like this where fixed penalty notices are handed out. It's up to the person who is handing out the notice as well, so I imagine there will be some discrepancies there. But I do have, as a parent myself of a young child, I do have sympathy with those parents and grandparents who just don't want to have their children
I do too, and I think people should be careful around children. And similarly, if I had a colleague who said to me, actually, you know, can you tone things down a little bit? I remember I went from working in newsrooms to working in the civil service, and I was told by a senior manager at one stage, actually, you do need to remember this is the civil service and not a newsroom, and that's fine, and those are different kind of areas. And I mean, I was around a 6-year-old in Amsterdam. My friend is a 6-year-old. I was looking after him for a short time, and we were really careful kind of how we said things, what we said, how we explained things. That's perfectly fine, but should you actually be fined £100?
No, I don't think that you should. But I think what really annoys me more than anything else is people who talk extremely loudly. And I'm sure you, like me, have been on a train before where someone's having probably the most banal conversation imaginable at the opposite end of the carriage, and you can just hear every word. Now, of course, if someone is using particularly bad language, but they're being rather quiet with it, it's a private conversation, they're not bringing other people into it, then no one's got a problem with that. I think the problem is when people are shouting on the top of their voice, the language is particularly bad. But they don't have to be using bad language. It's just very antisocial, isn't it?
I totally get
that. Take over a room.
I totally get that. And it's similar when people are playing music on public transport and out of their phones and things, which is a totally antisocial thing to do. The question is, I suppose, whether there should be fines for that. The Liberal Democrats, before the council election, said there should be fines of up to £1,000 for playing music out of your phone. I suppose the point is whether you think that's reasonable or whether people should just get the message and say, do you know what, this is not socially acceptable. And what I think should be socially acceptable, and people should back people up, is when they go over and say politely, as I have on a couple of occasions, could you possibly put earphones in? You know, it's a bit antisocial just to have that music blaring out. Would that be okay? I think that's a reasonable thing to say, rather than necessarily being fined for it.
Yes, no, I completely agree with you. And the vast majority of people may perhaps not even realise that their music is too loud, or they may not realise that they're talking particularly loud, and they will apologise. You will always get some people who will just ignore it, but of course they probably will ignore the fixed penalty notice as well. So I just don't think that that's going to work at all.
Tell us about Avon Fire and Rescue Service. There's an employment tribunal, and part of what is happening, it is focused on the use of the word fireman. This is a fireman who quit after being disciplined for failing to stop his staff saying firemen. Simon Bailey's 58 had been commended for bravery, but was given a final written warning and downgraded following the use of the sexist term. I mean, a man who fights fires is a fireman. It's not
well,
sexist.
It was when I was growing up.
It's not sexist to say that, is it? Why do you have to say firefighter? Also, people who catch fish are fishers. They're not fishermen and fisherwomen. They're fishers, apparently.
Yes, they use that. I discovered that term, actually, fishers, when I worked in the European Parliament back in 2019. I'd never heard of it before, but all of a sudden they were talking about fishers rather than fishermen. And we were talking about children's television. Of course, there's Fireman Sam as well, isn't there, Peter?
Well, is Fireman Sam sexist? That's what I want to know.
Well, I suppose what they're trying to say
he's hard to pin down. He's hard to pin down as old Fireman Sam because he's always on the move.
But this is very serious, even though we're joking, because someone has effectively lost their job or felt that they couldn't work in the fire service anymore because of this most stupid ruling. I think his lawyer said, how can you discipline someone for using a term that's been in existence for about 150 years? And I rather agree with his lawyer. But this is not the first time Avon and Somerset Fire Service have been on my radar. I remember their diversity reports as well from the past, so they seem to have form on this.
Yeah, it's interesting. This is in regard to a female firefighter, let's call her a firewoman, and former England rugby player Sasha Atchison making a claim against the same station for sexual harassment, discrimination and victimisation. I don't want anybody fighting fires, male, female, taking a feeling that they're sexually harassed, that there's discrimination and victimisation. But, I mean, fireman is a word and fireman is a word. It's a reasonable thing to use. It's been around for many, many hundred, well, at least 150 years. Barrister Emma Sewell, representing Avon Fire and Rescue Service, argued watch manager Mr Bailey, their boss, did not respond to a serious grievance in regard to using firemen. The tribunal is going to decide on Mr Bailey's claim at a later date, but he has said that he has a letter of commendation from the chief congratulating me on his 27 years of service, but he's left in a drawer now. I mean, what a horrible end to a really incredibly important service to fighting fires.
Yes, it is a most appalling end for a man who's obviously done his job extremely well and extremely professionally over the years. But what sort of a person actually gets upset and wants to start a grievance process because someone has said fireman?
Yeah.
Like, it probably says more about the person who started the grievance process than anything else.
Well, listen, we'll see how that all develops. Andrew, thank you for your thoughts today. That's Andrew Allison, who is Head of Campaigns at Popular Conservatism. Appreciate you joining us today. What do you think about this? Calling a fireman a fireman? I mean, it just seems really, really straightforward to me. 0344 499 1000. I'm sorry, I just seen the strap on the screen. Fireman Sham. That is brilliant. Whoever came up with that, you're a genius. It certainly wasn't me. Jim in Devon says, such a hot day. Wonder if one of the striking junior doctors were to fall ill on their demonstration. I trust they would be treated like we are, not being. They're greedy lefties, says Jim. This new party should be called Dead in the Water, and maybe like those scary 70s public information films, people will learn to avoid it. Womp womp. Sadly, my name is pronounced the same as Granola Sultana. Okay, so Zara, this is Z-A-I-R-A, but it's Zara apparently. You gave me a good laugh yesterday trying to pronounce it. Yes, well, I've pronounced it correctly today and I've killed the fly, so the day has not been entirely wasted. The fly is no more, the fly is an ex-fly. Neil says, Jeremy Corbyn, enough said. 250,000 people signed up, so they have a collective IQ of 4. Another person in the trough of the civil never had a proper job service. Tell your guest the left never work. Tell us what you really think, Neil. Carol says, how about Labour leftover party for Corbyn and Sultana? And Gary says, who in their right mind describes a political party led by Jeremy Corbyn as progressive? The man hasn't changed his political views in 60 years. Well, I have another very big question, and that is whether Imagurav, who is back from Switzerland, has brought me the promised Lindt chocolate. She was at the Lindt chocolate factory. I know not a huge amount about sport or women's football, but she is going to tell us a lot about all of that. And we're going to find out. Maybe we can sit there and eat the chocolate. Let's see if she's brought it. Stay tuned for that next here on Talk.
10K cash for Coldplay.
Play 10K cash for Coldplay with 10 grand in your hand tax-free plus 6 super hot tickets to witness Coldplay's sold-out Music of the Spheres tour from a VIP box at Wembley Stadium on August 22nd.
Tickets, top tunes and 10 grand cash.
Don't panic. Enter to play 10K for Coldplay at talksport.com/win and get ready for the feel-good gig of the summer. 10K for Coldplay is a joint TalkSport Limited competition run on TalkSport, Talk and Virgin Radio. See talksport.com for terms and conditions.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you to Matthew, who says, great show. Hilary Shan saying it's exciting for progressive politicians with Jeremy Corbyn's party. I've been saying it for a long time. Progressivism is a sanitised way of saying communism. Jeremy Corbyn should be honest and call this party the Communist Party of the UK. Well, I think that exists anyway. Margaret in Birmingham says, Jeremy Corbyn's splinter party or breakaway, and hope Donald Trump enjoys Scotland. Yeah, breakaways are a lovely biscuit though, so I don't want to, sort of tarnish their image by associating them with Jeremy Corbyn. Trouble for Starmer with Corbyn, says Leslie. Can't remove the whip from MPs if they rebel for fear they will move in with Corbyn. Well, he's done that to a few people, Leslie. We'll see what happens. Quite a number of people getting in touch about the fly, which is now dead. Steve says, think I might have left my pet fly behind when visiting Ian Collins and Talk this afternoon. If anyone sees him, cheers, Steve. Sorry, Steve. The fly is dead. It is an ex-fly. It has been whacked. Jim says, that fly, on a lighter note, that reminds me of the pirate ship off the Essex coast, Radio London. They killed a fly and had a proper funeral service. It was dropped in the sea. Have a good weekend, Jim. I've been trying to kill it for a couple of days. It is now dead. Let's talk about potentially more serious matters, because it is time for the
Sport Summary on Talk.
Uma Gurav, the TalkSport presenter, is back from Switzerland. Hello.
Hello.
Where's my chocolate?
As I told you that this was going to happen, I did in fact eat all of your chocolate on the way back. It was...
So there is no Swiss chocolate for me, that's what you're saying?
No, I'm really sorry.
Well,
it was great though, I can tell you that.
Well, that's good, that's good. Well, the good news is, Uma, is that we do have a vending machine on this floor. So, if you want to buy me a Mars bar, don't let me stop you.
Okay,
don't let me stop you. No, I'm only joking. It's great to see you back. You've done fantastic coverage. And of course, the Lionesses are playing Spain on Sunday.
They are, and they're going to win, because like every England fan at the moment, you have to be completely delusional, I think, after some of the performances they've seen. I mean, they've taken us through 2 sets of extra time, gone down twice, come back. They've been really poor, and I just think that they're due an excellent performance. And, in Serena we trust. Serena Wiegmann, of course, going for her 3rd consecutive Euro trophy. She's not been to a Euros that she hasn't won. So surely she can win. Of course, the only problem is they are up against Spain, world champions, just such a quality team. And I think they are going to have to be at their best. I believe they're going to win, though. We've obviously got 19-year-old Michelle Adjumam, who's become the new face of the Lionesses. She's come on twice now and scored as a substitute. Only 19, and you're saving your nation. You know her surname, Adjumang, actually means saviour of the nation in Ghanaian.
Does it really? That's fantastic.
So it's literally written in the stars that she's going to save us.
Let's hope so. I'm loving that optimism. Let's hear about the Women's Super League. Let's hear about alcohol as well.
Yes, so we had the WSL fixtures announced today, but it's also been announced over the last couple of days that they're going to be introducing alcohol trials in the stands of some of the stadiums in the top tier and in the second tier. So that means that stadiums including the Emirates for Arsenal's games, Stamford Bridge, both of the Manchester teams are doing this, and Liverpool as well are trying this out. You can drink in view of the stadium, which of course you can't do in men's football.
Yep.
That was decided many years ago because of course hooliganism in football was rife. It was decided football fans weren't to be relied upon to be sensible while drinking alcohol. Women's football fans, however, can be relied upon apparently, and that's what they're going to try out here, whether or not this is feasible and whether it does contribute to getting more fans in. That's what this is about, I think. Also to watch WSL games, it's thought, this could encourage a more social atmosphere for people, but we'll see how that works out. But I will be going to WSL games.
And raising a glass to them, no doubt.
Champagne.
Yeah, that's it, just not my chocolate. Let's talk about the transfer news, what's been going on there.
Yeah, lots been going on. The big talk today is all about Alexander Isak, of course, the Newcastle striker who was so fabulous for them last season. They won the League Cup, such a great achievement for them, first trophy in 70 years. Newcastle thought they tied down all their players. Everyone said Isak won't be going anywhere. All of a sudden, he doesn't go on their pre-season tour to Asia, supposedly because he's got an injury. And then it comes out that reportedly he's eyeing up other clubs, possibly Liverpool are interested. And it suddenly just feels as though the Newcastle hierarchy could be falling apart a little bit. Whether he actually goes out the door remains to be seen. Liverpool are reportedly preparing a £150 million bid. That would be a British record move. There's interest from Saudi Arabia. It would be such a loss for Newcastle because they're really trying to become one of the big teams. But if they can't hold on to their good players, how do they build? So yeah, we'll keep an eye on them. And also Victor Gyökeres. Looks like Arsenal are finally signing a number 9. They'll have a striker. He's due in for a medical, we understand, tonight. So, yeah, keep an eye on that one. And if they can actually win a title, they won't have any more excuses now.
You never know. Let's talk about the 4th test of the cricket. Day 3 at Old Trafford. England 2-1 up in a 5-match series. What has been happening today?
It's been all about Joe Root today, who has become the 2nd highest test run scorer of all time, only behind Sachin Tendulkar. England have been fantastic today. Great day of batting. But yeah, it's been all about him. He's such a fantastic all-rounder and, you know, cricket audiences will have loved him for a long time. But I think now he's really starting to come into the conversation of being one of the best batters of all time. England were about 516 for 6 when I came in here. They're going pretty well. They're already 2-1 up in this test series, so if they win this one, they will win the series. But yeah, it looks like they're a really strong team, and I think they've been coming together. Ben Duckett, Zach Crawley had some great performances this morning, so a strong England team, lots to be happy about there.
Uma, thank you very much indeed. I'm only joking about the Mars bar, by the way.
I'll bring you one next week.
Nah,
maybe 2.
Yeah, bring me one now. Well, you've said it now. We'll see what happens next Friday. We'll keep an eye on that. Uma, thank you very much indeed. That's TalkSport presenter Uma Garev, failing to bring me Swiss chocolate. But given the price of Swiss chocolate, I mean, it's so ridiculous in Switzerland. My best mate lives in Switzerland. I kind of stopped going a few years ago because it's just so expensive. They decoupled from the euro. Uma, thank you very much. Decoupling from the euro, the Swiss franc, perhaps not the biggest issue today. Jason's been in touch and says Jezza's new party should be the Fruit and Nutcase Party. Well, Jason, as we know, Zara Sultana doesn't like her surname being compared to Sultana's, which is the same word, and apparently that's racist according to her. The best one I heard was Jezbollah. He, of course, Jeremy Corbyn called Hamas and Hezbollah his friends. Jason also says progressive equals regressive. Thank you to Anne, who says if swearing is all this council has to worry about, then they are doing okay, but somehow I very much doubt it. That's ridiculous. Lots on the fireman problems, and Anne in Archway says the job of a fireman as opposed to chairman and so on is not gendered, it's neutral in our language and can be held by any person, male or female. Laura says regarding the fireman debacle, I don't care what they're called, they're all heroes to me. And Mick in Wallington says sadly the fire brigade has been infiltrated like the police and army, even in Somerset Constabulary. We're pioneers of wokery, says Mick in Wallington. Rachel says I'm delighted to hear about Jeremy Corbyn's new party. What a wonderful gift to Reform UK and their supporters. Thanks, Jezza. By the way, Peter, you absolutely cracked me up. I was beginning to wonder about Flygate, as I not heard you mention him today. Well, he's gone. He's gone, Rachel. The fly is dead. But yeah, it wasn't quite as prominent today, and then there were a couple of occasions to kill it, and then I took the decision to end the fly's life. Mick in Wallington says Starmer, Lammy and Hermer, Richard Hermer, have been, Freudian slip there, have been gagging to recognise Palestine, and now is the time with Trump on a visit maximum exposure. And Clayton in Dartford says Councillor Hillary has a nice house. I wonder how many illegal immigrants she would have living with her. Another champagne socialist, says Clayton in Dartford. Let's speak to Peter in Croydon about the story we were talking about a little bit earlier on. This is Portsmouth City Council and the fact that they were suppressing the truth when it came to charges that have been brought against an asylum seeker for sexual offences. Peter is in Croydon, has some thoughts on this. Peter, we'll obviously be very careful because we don't want to prejudice the trial and all of this, but what are your thoughts on this?
Hello there, Pete.
Hi there.
It's related to another thing, but it's just come to me. While it's on Portsmouth, Donna Jones, the crime commissioner, she used to be on Talk quite a lot, didn't she?
I think you're right. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I'm not sure Donna Jones is the police and crime commissioner anymore. Can we just check that actually? I'll come back to you.
I'm pretty sure she is. Anyway.
Okay, we'll check it. Yeah.
Yeah, back to my point. This is a similar case, and I think it was on Kevin's show. There was a rape of a young girl at the beginning of this month.
Okay, I don't know about that case, and I want to be really, really careful about it, Peter, because I don't know if charges are brought or not. But Peter, just in general, in terms of this council and talking about the information, putting it in the public domain, Peter, what do you make of what the council has done?
I think it's awful. I think, she had no right. I mean, obviously, they just want to keep it quiet, and she wants to be a good little girl for Keir Starmer, like this one in Ashfield, this copper who says, "Oh, you might prejudice the case if you say something." This was
well, this was just putting factual information that was in the public domain anyway, and talking about it, and it was about suppressing all that. Peter, listen, thanks for your thoughts. I really appreciate that. That's Peter in Croydon there. And yes, Donna Jones. Peter's right. I just didn't know. Donna Jones is indeed the Police and Crime Commissioner for Hampshire and the Isle of Wight. She is a Conservative, and Peter in Croydon was correct on that point. So thank you to him for that. Thank you to you as well for all the thoughts that you've been bringing into the show. We have another hour in which to express them. If you want to get your voice on the air, the number is 0344 499 1000. Plenty to discuss. We're also going to talk to Sir John Redwood, the former Conservative MP, in just a minute or two about the doctors, about what happened in Portsmouth, or what is happening, about Epping, and about the farms shutting in the wake of the inheritance tax raid as well. We'll talk to a beef farmer about that, and we'll talk to Nicole Lampert, the journalist, a little bit later on about Jewish comedy gigs at the Fringe Festival in Edinburgh cancelled over safety concerns, and Israel allowing foreign countries to parachute aid into Gaza as well. That is a major change in their policy. Lots to discuss. Get your call in 0344 499 1000.
Across the UK on DAB+. On your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, a very good evening. This is Talk Drive. I'm Peter Cardwell. Thank you so much for your company. I'm going to be here from Tuesday to Friday next week. Jeremy Kyle is off on his holidays. I'm also here tomorrow between 10 and 1, so no rest for the wicked. And actually on Sunday we're going to have Andrew Bowie for the Conservatives frontbencher, and indeed James Murray, the Treasury Minister, are going to be on the show. So lots to discuss then, lots to discuss now in regard to Portsmouth Council and their suppressing of free speech. We're talking as well about the doctors' strike. It'll help those who want the NHS to fail. That's what the Prime Minister says. And Epping Police and Crime Commissioner telling the government to stop sending migrants to unsuitable hotels to avoid fuelling community tensions. Thank you also to everybody who has commented on the sad death of the fly that I killed about 20 minutes ago. Loads to discuss. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell. You can send me a voice note. You can send me a WhatsApp text message, or give me a ring on the main number 0344 499 1000. Remember, there are loads of ways to get in touch between now and 7. Kevin O'Sullivan's coming up. He has another big exclusive coming up at 7, so stay tuned for that. Loads to discuss here on Talk. Well, a sincere apology to Murpho from Preston. He says Fireman Sam is always on the scene, not on the move. I misquoted the lyrics to the theme tune of Fireman Sam. I sincerely apologise for that. Angie says, can we have a minute's silence for the fly? No, we can't, Angie. It stood no chance with those no pause of yours. Natalia says, your fly killing services are urgently required here in central Tel Aviv. Do bring the Lindt chocolate. Well, I didn't get the Lindt chocolate. Oh my God, didn't bring me the chocolate. Mr. Watchman says, I'm afraid the Fire Authority is ignorant. Use of the word man linguistically does not invariably mean a man as opposed to a woman. It's derived from Proto-Germanic man with 2 N's, meaning person. It is therefore completely appropriate across the sexes. Philip says, careful Peter, you'll have the animal rights mob after you. That's you, cancelled. Well, I hope I'm not cancelled for killing a fly. I think that is an acceptable course of action. April has been in touch from Shropshire. April, I don't think we've spoken before. You're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say? I think it's the migration issue you've given us a call about.
Yes, thanks. Basically, how are we going to get this government out? Because they're putting everybody at risk. They're financially is a complete mess. What have they got to do for us to get rid of them? Well, they're going to be around. They're democratically elected. They're going to be here probably until 2029. What can we do in the meantime, I suppose, is we can try to make our voice heard and try to talk to them and make them know that the public aren't happy, and you clearly aren't happy, April. What would you like them to do? I think that everyone who doesn't agree with what they're doing and the way they're spending our taxes and taxing us to the hilt is that everyone who doesn't agree with that should go on strike and bring the country to its knees and force an election. I am really glad you've mentioned tax, because we have the highest level of taxation as a proportion of what the country makes since the Second World War. And I don't know about you, April, but I don't feel I'm getting value for money from my taxes. Definitely not. It's being wasted, thrown away at every opportunity. They're just throwing money away. And I think I really feel that people need to focus on this a bit more, because I think if politicians start talking about value for money and ways we can get value for money, and the way that those taxes, that, like, we all have to pay tax. I want it to be lower than it is. I know John Redwood, I'll speak to in a second, will want it to be lower than they are already. But, I mean, what would your message be to April, April, what would your message be to the government in terms of how they can spend taxes wisely? Well, I just think they're an elected dictatorship. They're not listening to us at all. All these big issues, what are you getting from Keir Starmer? Silence and hiding behind tweets. I think they need to start spending money on what needs spending on money, their own people. He's just interested in international affairs. He doesn't give a toss about the public. April, thanks for your thoughts there. That's April in Shropshire. Let's put some of that to Sir John Redwood, the former Conservative MP. Probably won't ask him questions about Fireman Sam, but Sir John, tell us your thoughts on the tax take, how high it is, what it should be ideally, and whether you think we're getting value for money from this Labour government. You're very welcome this evening.
Thank you very much. No, you're right, and your contacts are right, that we're not getting value for money and we're being taxed to the hilt. We're now at the point where they're taxing so much that they're going to collect less revenue as a result. Let's look at the impact of the big jobs tax. It means we're losing jobs. We're going to have more unemployed, we've got fewer vacancies, fewer people are going to get a well-paid job, so they get less income tax than they would have done if they hadn't been so greedy with the national insurance jobs tax. And let's look at the way they're overtaxing the farmers, or they're overtaxing small business. We see a lot of those closing down or being sold out before the tax barrier comes down on them.
You're absolutely right.
We see record closures of farms.
Well, you're absolutely right, and some of the statistics on farms are really quite shocking. 6,365 agriculture, forestry and fishing businesses have closed over the past year, according to the Office of National Statistics. That is the highest quarterly data since it was published first in 2017. And we were told that this wasn't going to be that big a deal. Of course, it is a huge deal, because the farmers quite rightly have said, stuff this for a game of soldiers. If I can't pass this on to my son or my daughter or someone I want to pass it on to without huge taxation, why bother?
Yeah, indeed. So they sell out. And then you've got a queue of millionaires and billionaires leaving the country, because if you overtax them, they've got options. They're not like the rest of us. They can go to a home somewhere else in the world. They can buy a nice property somewhere else. They can go to a place that actually wants them and doesn't charge nearly so much tax on them. And the more of the millionaires that head to the exit, the less tax we're going to get. And the government's got to realise that the top 1% of income tax payers pay 30% of the income tax already. And if you lose some of them, particularly if you lose the billionaire ones who are paying millions in tax, we really have a problem. It means all the rest of us are going to have higher taxes yet again. So the taxes are too high, to the point where they're not going to collect as much revenue as if they have more sensible taxes, and the money is being poured down the drain. It's being wasted in so many different ways. I mean, how right it was to be reminded that Keir Starmer always wants to give money away to foreign governments and foreigners, and doesn't seem to be able to find the money for pensioners and for the disabled at home. Why are we giving all that money away on the Chagos Islands? Why are we now proposing to give a whole load of money to the EU when we voted to stop paying the EU money in the referendum? Why are we allowing in so many thousands of illegal migrants when they promised to get on top of that problem?
Well, let's
and
talk
they
about,
all need free housing.
Let's talk about migration now, actually. I just want to replay a little bit of a clip earlier on. This was a Reform UK councillor I spoke to, George Madgwick, and this is his thoughts on what Portsmouth City Council have done. This is in regard to him being told as a councillor that he wasn't to talk about the fact that an asylum seeker in a hotel in Portsmouth had been charged with sexual offences. He then decided he thought that was outrageous, as I do. He then made a formal complaint. That formal complaint has been rejected, and there will be no further action taken against the Chief Executive of the Council. We spoke about this a little bit earlier on. I'll get your reaction in a second, Sir John, but I just want to replay just about a minute of what George told me a little bit earlier on in this programme. Has now been thrown out, essentially, no independent investigation, and they didn't even ask you about it. They didn't even bring you in and say, actually, we just have a couple of matters, we just want to ask you a couple of questions. Did they come back to your evidence? Did they send you an email and say, can you just give us a bit more information? Was there any kind of sense of getting more detail from you or talking to you about this formally?
Nothing. And I've been told, I've not been told how the matrix or how they just come to their decision. I've not been told whether my human rights have been considered as part of the decision-making process. As I say, they received my complaint in full. They received the council officers their point in full, and they made a decision based on that. But they had a several-hour meeting, and during that whole process they weren't able to cross-question, so they didn't have the ability to ask me questions, or if they had an opinion, they couldn't clarify that opinion. So how can they come to a reasoned decision without actually being able to question the person that's made the complaint? It's fundamentally flawed. And now, unfortunately, these councillors, these parties are now essentially part of this cover-up, because they're now protecting the Chief Executive Officer, who, in my opinion, and it is an opinion, my opinion, has done something wildly inappropriate.
Wildly inappropriate, Sir John? What do you think?
Well, I think Portsmouth Council have dug themselves into a big hole, and they need to start trying to get out of it, don't they? I can't comment on the individual case of an individual officer of the council, because I don't know all the facts. But I do know that people don't want cover-ups, and they don't want free speech limited on this most crucial of issues. People have every right to be angry about the way in which this government made a promise on smashing the gangs, and we've now seen a 50% surge in the numbers coming in. The last government hadn't got on top of it properly. The new government promised to do so, and it's done the opposite, and the thing has gone horribly wrong. So people are quite right to be angry, and it goes back to what we started talking about at the top of your programme, and that is that we're all paying loads of tax, and we don't think the priority is expensive hotels for migrants who want to come here, who have come illegally, and who are given very good housing and then given all sorts of other benefits and assistance to sit there and do nothing while we go through very long legal processes when they had entered illegally. People are so cross about that. And any council that gets on the wrong side of that feeling is going to lose a lot of votes, because the public are saying to councils, we don't want all these illegals here. Of course, we want the government to get on top of it, but you, the council, should be on our side. You shouldn't be aiding and abetting it.
Portsmouth City Council, I should say the Council does not comment on any matters relating to individual members of staff, and we have offered the opportunity for the Chief Executive, Natalie Brahma-Pearl, to come on, as well as the Liberal Democrat leader of that councillor, who is called Steve Pitt. So we will see if they decide to come on. Sir John, I just want to talk about the doctors' strike at the moment, because what we had seen, you talked about Keir Starmer not being interested in matters domestic, and certainly what happened early on in his time as Prime Minister was he gave a 22% pay rise to junior doctors. We know ASLEF train drivers got a pretty hefty rise as well. Now the doctors are back wanting 29.2%. How has this been handled, in your opinion?
Well, again, very disappointing, isn't it, that the Labour Party was understandably critical that there were quite a lot of strikes under the Conservatives when they were wrestling with this problem, because they didn't think the right answer was to give a very large pay increase out of line with everybody else, and were conscious that there were limits to how much taxpayers could afford. Labour came in and said, oh, we know how to deal with this. The Tories are just too mean. We're going to give them a really big pay rise, and then we're all going to live happily ever after. And 1 year down the road, they say, well, we want another very, very big, exceptionally large pay rise. They're already being offered a pay rise considerably more than most people on top of the 22% you mentioned. So, yes, again, people feel very let down. I mean, as it happens, the opposition will largely support the government in saying to the doctors that they should go back to work and they should negotiate their way through their conditions of employment and so forth with the government, because a strike does nobody any good, and it's extremely damaging to all those people who want to have their appointments, who may need remedy or treatment urgently, and they won't be able to get access to it.
Sir John, thank you. That's Sir John Redwood there, the former Conservative Cabinet Minister. Thanks for joining us on Talk this evening. Keith is in Huddersfield and has given me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Keith, I understand you're dealing with some serious health issues at the moment. What's going on with you, and how have things been affected by the junior doctor strike?
I don't know if it's directly involved with the junior doctors, but I've got prostate cancer and I've got bladder cancer.
I'm very sorry to hear that, Keith.
I've had both appointments cancelled. Last time I had my bladder checkup, right, it's grade 2 cancer, they said last time we checked it. Right, they saw me on 4th of January. They said they'd see me in 6 months' time. I still haven't been seen. I had a row with them on the phone. I asked them to see another consultant.
Yeah.
They rung me up last week and said, you're going to see a Dr. Brian on Tuesday of this week. On the Monday, they cancelled that appointment.
Right, yeah.
And
you've been waiting over 6 months for this follow-up appointment. I mean, if you've got stage 2 cancer, you should be seen very regularly.
I normally am, but like I said, my prostate cancer was the same. They should have seen me around January time, and it got through to an appointment on June 25th, and I challenged them on that. I'm probably not making any friends with doing what I'm doing.
Well, you've got to stand up for yourself, Keith. And you're doing the right thing, and it might not be the most pleasant kind of conversations, but you've got to fight for it, and you shouldn't have to. I mean, these appointments should come through regularly in the way that they're supposed to, Keith. But it's such a slap on the face for you, who's dealing with some serious health issues.
Right. The other thing regarding this, I think it coincides with the doctor strike, is that Labour recently got rid of some troublemakers in the their organisation suspended them or took away their whip and what have you.
Yeah.
I think it's the same with the doctors. It keeps coming across in your programmes, which is brilliant, not just from yourself, from quite a few.
Well, thank you, Keith. I'll pass that on to the others. Yeah.
Right, is that you cut the head of a snake off. There's a woman on there this morning with you, and I had to turn it off. I did listen to it later on.
Was that the British Medical Association person who Mike Graham was talking about?
I totally agree with what Mike Graham says. Look at these people that are organising it. Sack them. Now, if they bring somebody else in to take over, it's doing the same thing. Sack them. They can't all go to New Zealand and Australia.
Yeah.
They can't all go there. And these people what are running it, do you think Australia or New Zealand want them to come and work for them with their records?
It's a very good point, Keith. Look, Keith, I wish you all the very best with your medical treatment, and I hope that you get the appointments you need, and with your battle against cancer there. Keith mentioned a really, really interesting point there, which was the British Medical Association. Extraordinary interview with my brilliant colleague Mike Graham this morning. Let's take a quick look back at that.
Where were you a doctor in 2008?
Why are you asking me that?
How is that relevant?
Well, because you say you want the pay restored to 2008 levels, but I don't believe you were a doctor in 2008. Were you?
So 2008 is when austerity came in line, is when our pay started being
eroded. Were you a doctor in 2008? Were you a doctor in 2008?
We've had 17 years of pay erosion.
Were you a doctor in 2008?
To be reversed. It's not relevant about what happens with doctors.
You're asking
when they
to
come
have
in.
your
It's a
pay
very
restored to a time when you were a child.
Program.
How about you get restored? You get your pocket money in 2008. How much was that? I mean, you know, you're just not a credible individual.
It's been eroded over 17 years, and what we want is for our pay erosion to be reversed. That's all we're asking for. We're asking for the government to come and negotiate, and so far all they've given us is empty
I'm not surprised they're not negotiating with you, because you're insane. No, I don't think they should negotiate with you. I think they should fire you, quite frankly.
Mike Graham, the inimitable, the original, talking to Melissa Ryan there, who's the co-chairwoman of the British Medical Association's Resident Doctors Committee. Let's call it what it is, the Junior Doctors Committee. She was on the picket line at St Thomas's Hospital in London and spoke to Mike this morning. I'm also happy to clarify that the lyrics of Fireman Sam are "He's always on the scene, Fireman Sam, his engine's always bright and clean, Fireman Sam." So happy to clear up the confusion over that, and to call Fireman Sam, who's apparently now sexist. We can't call him Fireman Sam. What do we call him? Firefighter Sam? Fireperson Sam? I don't know. Thank you to Jason in the Lake District, who has pointed out that if you put Labour in charge of the Sahara, in 5 years there'd be a shortage of sand. He has sent a message in to say thank you for that. We're going to talk to a beef farmer next. Matt is going to be with us. He's a fourth generation beef farmer. This huge controversy over the huge number of farms that are slipping away, people are giving up farming because of the inheritance tax rules Labour has brought in. Lots to discuss. I want to get your view on it as well. 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
10k cash for Coldplay.
Play 10k cash for Coldplay with 10 grand in your hand tax-free plus 6 super hot tickets to witness Coldplay's sold-out Music of the Spheres tour from a VIP box at Wembley Stadium on August 22nd.
Tickets, top tunes and 10 grand cash.
Don't panic. Enter to play 10k for Coldplay at talksport.com/win and get ready for the feel-good gig of the summer. 10k for Coldplay is a joint TalkSport Limited competition run on TalkSport, Talk and Virgin Radio. See talksport.com for terms and conditions.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This.
Well, just an update on that story earlier on about the BAFTA-nominated actor Michael Ward, who says he denies the charges of rape and sexual assault that have been levelled against him. He's added in a statement, "I recognise proceedings are now ongoing and I have full faith that they will lead to my name being cleared." He is an actor in Top Boy. He's been charged with 2 counts of rape and is due to appear in court next month. He's been accused of 2 counts of assault by penetration and 1 count of sexual assault. They relate to 1 woman and are reported to have taken place in January 2023. So that is a development in that. The BAFTA-nominated actor Michael Ward denies those charges of rape and sexual assault. "I recognise proceedings are now ongoing," he says, "and I have full faith that they will lead to my name being cleared." Right then, let's talk about the record number of farms shutting in the wake of the inheritance tax raid. This is 6,365 agriculture, forestry and fishing businesses have closed over the last year, according to the Office of National Statistics, the highest since quarterly data was first published in 2017. Rachel Reeves, of course, the Chancellor, announcing in October she would cut the amount of inheritance tax available to family farms. Let's speak to beef farmer Matt Cullen. He's a 4th generation beef farmer based just outside Canterbury in Kent. Matt, what is your reaction to this and what have you done yourself?
Well, I mean, I have to say these figures are very alarming, but they were obviously going to happen. And they were in the pipeline after what was announced by Rachel Reeves last year on her autumn budget on IHT. And it was inevitable that farms were going to start disappearing quite rapidly. You know, it's a real hard time at the moment. The costs of energy, fertiliser, inputs have gone right through the roof because of global wars that are happening around the world, have driven prices. You know, wheat at the moment, corn prices at the lowest they've been for such a long time. And there's just no hope at the end of the tunnel. And, you know, it was phenomenal that farmers were going to pack up because there is no light, there's no support. You know, you've got lots of elder generations of farmers that are looking to, what do I do? Well, I'm better off out of it. I'm better off selling the farm off. You know, at the moment, we've got lots of farms up for sale. You've got big corporations, the national trusts swooping in, buying up farms. It was going to happen. It's a disaster because at the end of the day, with such a toxic world we're in at the moment, food security should be our #1 priority. And I'm afraid this government is failing to do that in supporting enough farmers adequately, seeing that there's future food produced. And at the moment, we're only producing 58% of our food in this country. You know,
well, what should it be? Would you ideally want it to be 100%? I mean, we're always going to import something, aren't we?
Absolutely. You know, you're always going to import certain things that we can't grow in this country. But, you know, we should be at least 80% sufficient in this country. And the problem is when you fall into a factor that farms go out of business and you rely on other farms and imports around the world, when you have such a toxic and violent world we live in where any wars can happen, we see that with Ukraine and Russia, when those start kicking off and there gets a food shortage, these other countries that we import from, they will look after themselves first. You know, that's their own priority. Countries around the world always do that, look after themselves first. So when we become such a big importer of food into this country, it leaves us in a very, very
their priority is just not going to be us. If these large corporations are taking over farms or the land that farms are farming, what are they going to do with it, Matt?
Well, a lot of it's going into rewilding schemes. You know, they can offset their carbon footprint by rewilding, getting their offshore carbons against it. So, you know, what you're doing, you're seeing absolutely fantastic, perfect British farming come out of production, and then you're seeing corporations putting it into carbon offsets that by rewilding. You're seeing National Trust rewilding. It's good, lots of good productive farmland coming out. You know, when this IHT was coming in, it was going to be attacking all the big corporations. Well, it's not. You know, 74% of farmers are going to be affected. The threshold was far, far too low, far, far too low. And unfortunately, there was never enough time given to these farmers. And next April is coming around really quickly, you know, and farmers are struggling to work out what they're going to do, how they're going to justify doing it. And don't forget, a lot of these farms that it's going to affect are making a 1% return, 1% on their capital. I mean, there aren't many businesses that do that.
What are you doing yourself, Matt? Have you changed the way your farm operates and what you're going to do with your family, or have you worked out a way to get around it or to deal with it?
Well, we're working a way around to do with it. I mean, I've got a daughter. She's 7. I'd love her to go into farming, but I won't be farming for when she leaves school.
Yeah,
she won't be taking on the farm because I can't see a viable future in farming, so that when she hits 16, she's got a perfectly good business to go into. I just can't see that.
It's really sad, Matt, isn't it? I mean, you're a 4th generation beef farmer where you are outside Canterbury. I mean, you're angry, I can tell that, and I know a lot of people are angry as well, and people who aren't farmers are angry, people who are supporting farmers are angry, but there must be real sadness as well that a way of life is being eradicated.
It's funny, I mean, my late grandmother passed away a few weeks ago, and
I'm sorry to hear that.
She's from the farming family where we started, and we were having a chat with family, friends and other farmers, and I said, who would believe that our descendants that started farming gained a lovely farm, we work hard, we produce really lovely cattle? Who would think that we'd come into a modern day age where I'm about to look for the future for my daughter and not put her into farming, and probably cease farming in the next, you know, probably 10 years, because it's just not viable to do. And that's a sad thing. You know, my ancestors have worked so hard to produce perfectly best quality British beef. We've grown corn, we've done everything to the book we can do, and then we have a party come in, political party can come in and absolutely just wipe it off and ruin the industry for farming. And it's the small family farms, and that's the ones that are affected.
Yeah.
You know, that's the ones it's going to crucify. They're the ones that are struggling on the breadline. You know, with SFI, you know, they've shut the gate, they reopened it up again.
What's SFI? Tell us what that is.
So it's a sensitive farming initiative, so that we could be paid for looking after various bits on the farms for wildlife. But because it was quite a high threshold of paying out per hectare, they shut the gates quite quickly a few months ago, but they've reopened it. But that scheme is going to come to an end as well. And there's no guarantee that they're going to put another scheme in again to help support farming. You know, it's all been about, we produce food, but we've had help and subsidies from the government so that the food has been affordable and cheap for the everyday person. And when you cut all that away, you know, we're not price setters, we're price takers as farmers, you know, and everyone seems to be attacking the farmers, whether it's the wholesalers, the middle people, or it's the government. you know, and at the end of the day, the people that pay the price are the public, because that's the food that's going up through the roof. You know, the public know that their food prices are rising, and that's not down to us as farmers.
And unfortunately, it's only going to get worse as well. Matt, thank you so much for joining me this evening. That's Matt Cullen there, who's a beef farmer, fourth-generation beef farmer, based outside Canterbury in Kent. Thank you to Alan, who's been in touch. He says MPs asking for a two-state solution, recognition of a Palestinian state regarding Gaza. It's funny they can't sort out the problems in the UK, but they want to tell Israel what to do. Same with Macron. Arab countries don't want Palestinians, so I think that speaks for itself. Well, yeah, Egypt won't take refugees. Ireland as well, the most hypocritical of all Western European nations, incredibly pro-Palestinian. They won't take Palestinian refugees. Jane in Grimsby says the government is deaf to the British public regarding illegal migration. They think we are stupid and accept their lies. We are beyond angry, like a pressure cooker waiting to explode. Thank you to Michael, who says the anger is getting worse by the day, and when stories break that illegals are shoplifting at will without police acting on it, it just fuels the frustration and outrage we all pay indirectly for this blatant theft. It's about time the police got their stuff together and put the resources on real crime. Another person says, I think Starmer should get rid of the asylum seekers, stop giving money away, give the doctors their money. They deserve every penny. I was in hospital in January and I couldn't fault them. Craig in Sunderland also says, I can't believe that we are able to be called human, or will it be changed to Hugh Person, says Craig in Sunderland. Well, the person I worry about is the former footballer Steve McManaman. Will he be Steve McPherson a person? That's my question. Lots more to discuss, including Jewish comedy gigs at the Fringe in Edinburgh, cancelled over safety concerns. We'll talk to Nicole Lambert about that in just a second. Stay with us here on Talk and get your call in as well. 03444991000. We'll take loads of calls between now and 7 o'clock. When Kevin O'Sullivan takes over, he's here in this studio between 7 and 9. Then what just happened? And don't forget, I'm back tomorrow between 10 and 1, and indeed on Sunday as well. I've got Andrew Bowie from the front bench of the Conservatives, and indeed James Murray, the Treasury Minister, will be joining me on that programme on Sunday. Loads to discuss then, and indeed between now and 7 here on Talk.
Is Talk across the UK on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you to Mac in Glasgow, who says, Peter, regarding free speech, I think where it crosses the line is when it becomes abusive, threatening, slanderous and libelous. Freedom of speech also means the freedom to offend as well. It's okay to disagree, and if people who judge or criticise others need to have experience and know what they're talking about, they need to be challenged. About the swearing thing, if anyone in Glasgow got fined for swearing, they would be broke. Great show, says Mac in Glasgow. I basically agree with you. Abusive, certainly if you're shouting abuse at someone and you're being intimidating, and that is something that is meant to intimidate and your intent is to intimidate, I think that's probably fair enough. But I do think we need to be able to disagree agreeably and disagreeably as well, actually, and that's all within free speech, and nobody has the right not to be offended, or that used to be the case anyway. Kaz in Bedford says, I think Corbyn should call his party the Core Blimey Party, and Craig says, I wonder how long will it be before the word man is a man... Hold on. I wonder how long it will be before any word with the word man in it is bad. It's absolutely crazy. They're just words, says Craig. They are indeed just words, although I've struggled to read them from your message, but thank you nonetheless for that. And finally, before we go to Nicole Lampert, I want to thank, I think it's Philip on Twitter, who says, you're assuming Fireman Sam is male. Let's open that can of worms. He says, sending me an emoji of someone throwing petrol on a fire. Fireman Sam, I think probably is a man, but there we are. Jane says, I hope the President asked the Prime Minister about the protest. Will the Prime Minister be honest, though, is the question. Well, there's a lot in Donald Trump coming over here. There's also another controversy north of the border in Scotland in regard to Jewish comedy gigs at the Edinburgh Fringe being cancelled over alleged safety concerns, staff safety concerns. This is two comedians, Rachel Krieger and Philip Simon, who were booked to perform at the Whistle Binkies venue during the Edinburgh Festival. Huge festival. I've been to it. I think it is the world's largest arts festival. I've been there a couple of times. It can be great fun. And Miss Krieger was due to perform her show Ultimate Jewish Mother, while Mr. Simon was due to host Jew-orama of Jewish comedic talents. However, the acts claimed they were informed their gigs would be cancelled after bar staff at the venue expressed fears of feeling unsafe. Concerns were raised after an announcement the venue would receive extra police supervision amid continued worries over the safety of Jewish acts. Well, let's talk to Nicole Lambert, the journalist who has her finger on the pulse of anti-Semitism in this country. Nicole, what's going on here? Because safety concerns is a fig leaf, really, isn't it?
What we're seeing is actually anti-Semitism becoming a woke thing. So you're meant to be anti-racist if you are woke, but anti-Semitism doesn't come under that. So you can be as hateful as you want about Jews and you'll be absolutely fine. And we saw it with James O'Brien earlier this week on LBC, just reading out some horrific message about what was apparently taught at something called Shabbat School, which doesn't even exist. And now we're seeing two Jewish comics being banned simply for being Jewish. There's no other reason. It's not that they've said anything on stage. I know Rachel, I've seen her show, and it's like a warm hug of a show. It's about motherhood. It's very sweet, and she ends with a message of peace. Philip, not only has this show been cancelled, but I've just been in touch with him, and he has a one-man show also in Edinburgh, and he's also been just cancelled from that. And that the reason that they've given him is because he's done a pro-hostage something on his social media saying bring back the hostages, and that's why he's been cancelled.
He's been cancelled because he said bring back the hostages.
Yeah, so we were at a point where people were cancelling Israelis. We've seen that with bands. We've seen that with an act called Doo-Doo, who's with Johnny Greenwood, and we've seen that with a British Jewish band which had an Israeli singer called Oy Vavoy. But now we are seeing British Jews being banned simply for being Jewish. There's no other reason given.
Rachel Krieger has said, sadly, this is part of an ongoing problem faced by Jewish performers in this country. We are being cancelled and often silently boycotted. This is just so ridiculous. What needs to happen now is that some other venue in Edinburgh needs to step up and say, we're going to make sure these people have a chance to do their comedy, just like many thousands of other performers. I hope that happens. I'm really, really sad to see that happen. Let's turn to other political matters, and this is Starmer speaking to Macron and Merz. France is to recognise a Palestinian state. Trump is against it. What's your analysis of this, Nicole?
Well, we've just had a letter with about 220 MPs, mainly Labour MPs, also coming out for a state of Palestine. one day I would love there to be a two-state solution, a state of Palestine. To me, it feels like the wrong time, exactly the wrong time. Literally, Hamas walked out of peace talks yesterday. So what are we doing? We're rewarding them with the idea of a state. And it's just, it's virtue signalling, really, because Macron also said that he could only work when there was no Hamas. So how are you going to do that when you are only attacking Israel, when you're not calling on Hamas to leave for the sake of the Palestinian people or anything like that? We're only seeing Israel attacked. And this is all because of October 7. So we're literally rewarding a terrorist group with what they want. I mean, actually, it's not what they want. They want the entire land.
They want a one-state solution. They want a one-state solution. They don't want a two-state solution. I wonder if you can... I think there are a lot of people who want to be supportive of Israel who are struggling a bit at the moment because they're hearing a lot of stuff and they're seeing images, really, really powerful images and very sad images of people starving in Gaza. There was one on the front page of the Daily Express the other day. Israel and the United States now have pulled out of Gaza ceasefire talks. Israel allowing foreign countries to parachute aid into Gaza. Is the aid issue going to be solved, do you think? Because whilst I think there are many, many people like myself who are totally against Hamas, totally agree that they have to be eradicated, there are quite a number of innocent civilians who are really suffering here.
Yeah, I mean, like, no one wants to see sick children, of course, or anyone dying, or any of these innocent civilians that have been killed in this horrendous war. A war obviously started by Hamas on October 7. So what's been happening is that over the last nearly 2 years, Hamas has been taking aid taken from money spent by us, British taxpayer, and Europeans and Americans, and that has been sent out via kind of UNRWA and other UN organisations, and Hamas has been taking quite a lot of that, and some of it sells in the market for profit, and this goes to pay their fighters. So after the last ceasefire, and during that ceasefire time, Israel sent in lots and lots of aid, enough for about 6 months, and then it stopped aid as it tried to set up something called the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, which was actually set up by the Americans, and the IDF are just kind of overseeing the routes to it. I don't think the GFH have done a fantastic job. It's been chaotic. And then what we found is that Hamas are they so don't want it to work because basically it's stopping their only way of getting profit. They've literally been keeping people on their way there or causing fights. The IDF are shooting people. I'm sure that they're not doing it deliberately because they want the GHF to work. But people are dying on their way to try and get aid. Hamas are in the mix. There are also other groups with guns that are in the mix. And so the GHF model is giving out millions of meals every week, but it's not enough because it only works in part of Gaza. So it was only ever meant to work in tandem with UNRWA and other UN organizations, but they have basically refused to work with the GHF in terms of safeguarding the lorries. And as people become more and more desperate, they're attacking the lorries, often killing the lorry drivers. So they need safety. So the UN only wants to go in with Hamas protection. And Israel is saying, you can't go in with Hamas protection because that will defeat the purpose. And it just means that Hamas will take most of the aid. So it's quite a long-winded explanation, but hopefully it helps explain some of the problems and some of these tough decisions that have to be made, because you don't want to be literally giving the enemy money to recruit more soldiers to kill your soldiers, but at the same time, it's unconscionable. And I think that, all of us Brits see it, and I think everyone Jewish is very saddened that it's got to this stage where Hamas is willingly, and the UN, to be honest, willingly letting people starve rather than work with the GHF.
Nicole, thank you for that explanation. I think that will help quite a number of people demystify that issue, and thanks for your analysis as well. Nicole Lambert there, the journalist, letting us know her analysis of all of that. What do you think? 0344 499 1000. Sam in Croydon's been in touch. It says, for a two-state solution, Jewish people would have to withdraw from the West Bank. This means Israel would have two antagonistic states on either side. The West Bank, rather than a democratic and in many ways beautiful part of the world, would become another hellhole. Mark in Norwich says, the word person encompasses the word son, so Please don't use it again. Either say per daughter or per gender neutral, says Mark in Norwich. I think his tongue is perhaps firmly in his cheek. I am about to kill... No, I feel to kill another fly. There's another fly in here. No, it's gone. That one has escaped. Glyn says, Peter, what has the original fly done to deserve such a fate? It was probably seeking fly asylum. You absolutely heartless man, says Glyn. Thank you to Mel in Bradford, who says, I'm a female driving instructor. I advertise as such, as it is relevant to some clients. Am I going to be dragged over the hot coals in the very near future for being female? Absolute madness. Firemen are firemen and firewomen are firewomen. The world's gone mad, I tell you, says Mel in Bradford. The question is, Mel, are you like Mel Stride? Because Mel Stride, the joke when Mel Stride was running for leader of the Conservative Party was very, very sadly at his expense was Mel Stride. Never heard of her. Brian says democracy in this country at all levels disappeared many, many years ago. In regard to Portsmouth City Council, the elected members should be driving policy for the benefit of the people of the city, and the employees of the council, including the CEO, should be implementing these policies. Nothing else, and certainly not dictating what they are. Another case of the tail wagging the dog. Keep on doing what you do, please. The public need talk to continue shining a light. Well, Brian, thank you for that. We'll take some of your calls after the break, and of course Kevin O'Sullivan coming up at 7 o'clock. Lots to discuss. 0344 499 1000.
Of course, what happened in 1997 or thereabouts was Tony Blair said education, education, education. And some smart and ambitious police officers thought, we'll have a bit of this. And off they went to university to get their degrees. And they came back with their heads brainwashed with pseudo-intellectual Marxist claptrap. And so the police service we have today is unrecognisable from the policing of my era.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you to Betty, who has some thoughts on the Edinburgh Festival and says this Edinburgh ban is the woke student, staff and festival organisers, not the city, who are actually sick of the festival. Many of the people are in or involved in the festival, and tourists and punters are down year on year. They're even banning dogs in pubs now to cater for the new clientele who don't drink or spend any cash. So residents are happy to let the pubs and hotels die off due to their greed. The good news is that 30 to 40 people have been fired from the book festival because they refused funding from their only sponsor, assuming someone else would give them a free living, says Betty. Yeah, I think that was about woke causes as well, Betty, from memory anyway. It was about investing in Israel with Israeli companies, I think. Could be misremembering that. David in London has given me a shout about the doctor's strike, so 344 499 1000 is the number he has called. David, you're very welcome to the programme. What point would you like to make?
Good afternoon, Peter. It's quite obvious to me that we need to look at a no-strike agreement with these doctors. Look, years ago, Ronald Reagan got so sick and tired of the air traffic controllers keep holding Americans to ransom, he said, right, from now on, as of, say in our case, say September the 1st, you've got to sign a no-strike agreement or you're out of a job.
Do you think Wes Streeting would be as tough as Ronald Reagan?
No.
That's going to be a problem then, isn't it?
Peter, I've been listening this afternoon to people in absolute tears who've got a call back at the hospital, who are cancer patients, etc., etc. Have these doctors, I hope they're listening in, have they got no conscience at all? It's a bit more serious than air traffic controllers even, isn't it?
I think it is, and certainly, you know, well, I mean, I agree with your points, David, but they're not going to give away what they would say are their rights to strike, are they? They're not going to give that up.
Well, yeah, why not? Give them an ultimatum. If they don't like it, Peter, there was one on the other day. He said, if I don't get this money that we want, I'm going to Australia.
Go to Australia then.
Frankly, I'd contribute towards his air certificate.
Off you go. I'll give him a lift to the airport. Thanks, David. Much appreciated. Very good points there. Stephen's in Cambridgeshire and has given us a call about swearing. I know you're not going to swear on the air, Stephen, but what are your thoughts about this?
Yeah, no, you're right, Peter. I'm not. Yeah, are all these enforcers going to be trained in every language that's spoken in Great Britain at the moment? That's
a very good point, Stephen, because if you're going to swear in another language, I actually know some people. Well, I mean, I remember going on a trip with some people from the Republic of Ireland, and if they wanted to have a little chat, they sometimes said things in Irish that they knew I didn't understand.
Exactly.
I've had that in France as well with friends of mine who speak French. You know, they're having a discussion themselves in French.
So why should my Anglo-Saxon language be penalised?
Well, it's discrimination, Stephen, isn't it?
Yeah, well, exactly. So how's this council going to enforce it? Unless they can prove that every person that they've got enforcing it can speak every language that's present in there.
I think we should get the European Court of Human Rights involved, Stephen.
I'm only joking.
I know you are. I know you've got your tongue in your cheek, Stephen. But what your point? I mean, it's a funny point and it's a great point, but it nonetheless illustrates a very serious point, which is I'm not sure we should go around fining people. I mean, who's to say what is a swear word and what isn't a swear word, and what might be offensive to some people might not? I remember my mum used to tell me off for saying "shut up." She said it was rude.
Yeah, but just to give you in context, two of my friends were in Costco the other day. Mm-hmm. Other coffee shops are available.
Yes.
My friend can't read very well, and his friend was reading an article out of the newspaper. A woman complained, because it was regarding migrants and all this. A woman complained to the manager, and he was banned from the coffee shop.
Oh, for goodness sake, for reading out an article. Yeah, ludicrous.
No, his friend wasn't banned.
Right.
He was for listening to it.
That's very weird. Very weird. Stephen, listen, thanks for your call. Appreciate that. Vernon is in Devon and has some thoughts on anti-Semitism. Vernon, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
No, it's not Vernon, it's his daughter.
Oh, okay. What's the daughter's name?
It's Alison.
Alison, very good to talk to you. Alison?
I wanted just to tell you about my experience. When I lived in Vienna I wanted to tell you, when I lived in Vienna for 3 years, right, I found the fact that the little Jews, bless them, they used to hide. They used to hide all the time.
Jewish people used to hide?
Yeah.
Why was that?
They used to hide. Because they were scared.
Mm-hmm.
So I used to go to the shop with them, and they'd come out with me and go to the shop, and I'd help them do the shopping and whatever, and then I'd put them back in their homes. but they were scared.
Why were they scared? What was there a lot of anti-Semitism in Vienna?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
It was really, really bad. They were just terrified.
Okay.
Honestly,
okay.
They were terrified. And I had a lot of good friends, and and I just used to help them.
Do you see some of that happening in this country as well, Alison?
Sorry, what you say?
Do you see some of that, some of those kind of behaviours and some of that discrimination happening in this country as well, Alison?
I don't actually.
You don't? Okay.
No, but I saw it in Vienna.
Okay.
It was actually awful because they were just lovely people.
Yeah.
Absolutely lovely people.
Well, Alison, thanks. Okay. Listen,
they were just scared to talk.
Yeah. Well, Alison, listen, thanks for sharing that point with us. And there's a lot to think about there. Kevin O'Sullivan is with us now. He's going to be on the other side of the news. Kevin, great to see you.
Good to see you, Peter. Congratulations. Great story about Portsmouth. I say great journalistically, but a shocker.
An absolute shocker. You've a big exclusive coming up as well, don't you?
Well, we've got just another element of this sort of escalating psychodrama surrounding this migrant crisis. It is the fact that all these giant food delivery companies, Deliveroo, Uber Eats, Just Eat, have yet to be fined a penny.
They haven't been fined at all?
No, for hiring, clearly hiring thousands of illegal migrants. But small businesses are being fined, and we're going to talk to a nice guy who runs a little fish and chip shop in Egham in Surrey, and he inadvertently hired an illegal migrant who gave him false documents. He thought he was legal. He got found out. Poor guy got fined 40,000 quid.
40 grand, that's a heck